I always thought that turning 35 would feel more significant, that somehow the day would arrive with a sense of gravitas, of undeniable adulthood. Instead, I woke up on my birthday to an empty space beside me in our king-sized bed and the faint scent of my husband's cologne lingering on his pillow. Daniel had left early, which wasn't unusual. As a financial advisor for high-net-worth clients, his schedule often demanded early mornings and late nights. What was unusual was the absence of a birthday card on my nightstand or a text message wishing me happy birthday. In the 8 years we'd been married, Daniel had never forgotten. He's probably planning something, I told myself, padding into our ensuite bathroom to start my morning routine. My reflection stared back at me. Dirty blonde hair falling just past my shoulders. Green eyes that Daniel once said reminded him of sea glass, a few more fine lines around my eyes than I remembered having last year. I was running my fingers through my hair when I noticed it. Daniel's wedding ring sitting on the edge of the sink. He never took it off. Not for showers, not for sleep, not for anything. A cold sensation spread through my chest as I picked it up. The platinum band still warm as if it had only recently been removed. My phone buzzed from the bedroom, and I nearly dropped the ring. In my rush to grab it, expecting Daniel's name on the screen, instead, it was my best friend, Olivia. Happy birthday, Megan. Ready for lunch? I'm dying to give you your present. I stared at my husband's ring as I responded. Thanks, Liv. Can we push it to dinner? Something's come up. Everything okay? Not sure. I'll fill you in later. I tried Daniel's cell. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. Hey, you've reached Daniel Warren. Leave a message. Daniel, it's me. I found your ring. Call me back, please.
He wouldn't have let you take it.
By noon, he still hadn't responded, and the cold feeling in my chest had transformed into a hard knot of dread.
He spoke quietly, and Sylvie felt the chill of inevitability.
Even during our worst arguments,
I'm sorry, Mrs.
Daniel had
Marcellus.
never gone completely silent, never disappeared.
At that moment, the chapel,
I called his office.
Doors burst open.
Warren Financial.
2 town
How may I direct your call?
And half a dozen neighbors.
Hi,
most
Stephanie, it's
with
Megan.
Shotguns and
Is
cold
Daniel
iron
in today?
lantern stands spilled
A pause.
inside. Their faces
Too long to be
etched
normal.
with sorrow, rage,
Mrs. Warren.
exhaustion were a mirror of
I
Sylvie's
thought you
own
knew.
horror. You can't do this.
Daniel took a
called
personal
Ezekiel
day today.
Booth, once the town
The
blacksmith.
knot in my chest
His
tightened.
voice a low
Oh,
rumble.
right. Must have
She's
slipped
a
my
widow
mind.
with child.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Deputy Carlo
I hung up
raised.
and immediately dialed
his
his
rifle.
best friend,
Step
Eric.
aside, Booth.
Megan?
The gun
Happy
glinted
birthday.
wickedly.
Thanks,
a cry
Eric.
rose from the back
Have you heard
pew,
from Daniel today?
And Sylvie saw the
Another
smallest
pause.
of the deputies young
What was it with
Parkins
everyone
lower his
pausing
head,
before answering me
shame
today?
flooding his expression.
Not since yesterday.
He had
Everything
grown up
okay?
on the Marcellus land,
I'm
had watched
not sure.
Sylvie's husband.
He wasn't home when
Jonah,
I woke up,
teach
and he
him to
left his
tend
wedding
horses,
ring behind.
mend fences,
He's not
carry
answering his
firewood.
phone.
This land
His
was
ring?
home. Walter
Eric's
Keene
voice
closed his
sharpened.
eyes,
That's not
whispering
good.
something too soft
I
for
know.
others to hear.
Can you think
The
of where
moment
he might
stretched
go
as taut as a drawn
if something was
bowstring.
wrong?
Then he
Maybe the
opened his
lake house?
eyes, and something
You know how he
raw
likes to
and
clear his head
pained
there.
glimmered within them.
The lake house.
I have my orders,
Our weekend retreat
he
that we'd
said.
purchased 3
But I
years
also
ago.
have a duty to
small
justice.
cabin 2 hours
Sylvie's
north of the
breath caught.
city.
Under
It made
that single
sense.
phrase
If Daniel
lay a
needed
world of
space,
hope and
that's where
terror
he'd go.
God in the sudden.
Thanks, Eric.
Hush!
I'll
a
try
murmur
there.
rippled through the congregation.
Let me know when you
an
find
echo
him,
of something
okay?
long buried.
And Megan.
Townsfolk exchanged
Whatever's going
worried
on, I'm
glances
sure
as
there's
the
an
sun
explanation.
climbed higher.
But the
windows
gentleness
now
in his
spilling
voice told
golden
me he was
pools onto
already
their
assuming the
upturned
worst.
faces.
I grabbed my
Justice,
keys
they
and
realized,
purse,
was
then
not always
hesitated.
blind, but sometimes
What if
it
Daniel
listened.
came home while I
Sylvie
was
stepped
gone?
forward, her voice
I should
steadier
leave a
than she
note.
felt.
As I reached
Justice,
for a
Marshal,
notepad on the
is
kitchen
truth.
counter, I
And the
noticed our
truth
shared
is,
iPad
Jonah
lying
paid
there.
more than enough.
Maybe he'd
If
used
you
it
take this
recently,
farm,
and there
you
would be
take
some
my
clue.
home, and you
I
condemn
shouldn't
my
have
child
looked.
to the cold.
Some part of
Walter
me knows that
Keene
now.
looked at her, really looked,
But in that
as
moment,
though seeing
driven
her
by
for
an
the
increasingly
first.
desperate need to
Time,
understand what
the
was
rifle
happening,
in his hand
I
weighed
tapped
on
the
him
screen.
like a verdict yet to be
It
delivered.
lit up immediately.
He shifted his boots
Open
in
to
the
Daniel's
dust.
email.
Then, from
The
somewhere
message
deep
displayed
inside
was
his
sent this
coat
morning
pocket,
at
he
6:18
drew a
a.m.
folded
to his
scrap
assistant,
of parchment,
Stephanie,
the governor's order,
taking a
with its
personal
cruelly
day.
precise
Please reschedule all
stipulations.
appointments. Will
He
be
cleared his
unreachable.
throat and began to read.
DW below it was
Sylvie's
another
heart
email.
thudded
This
until
one
it
from an
nearly
address
drowned
I
his
didn't
voice.
recognize.
She watched as his jaw clenched and the words
chloe.parker87@gmail.com.
tumbled from his lips.
The subject
Seize
line
the
read,
land immediate
"Re.
occupation.
Today's
No
the day."
exceptions.
My finger
The
hovered over
finality
it. My breath caught.
of that declaration landed
my
in her
throat.
chest like a fist.
Then I
The
tapped it.
townsfolk let out a collective
Daniel,
gasp pain.
I can't believe
unspoken
we're
yet
finally doing
understood.
this. I've
Sylvie
packed
felt
everything
the
as we
chapel's
discussed.
rafters heave with
Meet
their
me at
despair.
7:30 at our spot, and then we're free.
Through the stained
No
glass
more hiding,
window on the
no
far
more stolen
wall,
moments.
a beam
I
of
know
light
this is
fell
hard,
upon the floor
especially
in
on
front
her
of
birthday.
Sylvia,
But a
illuminating
clean break is
single,
better. She
solitary
deserves
crystal
someone who
hidden
loves
in
her
the dust
completely,
that clung
and
to
I
the
deserve
chapel
all of you.
planks.
See you
The
soon.
light caught the prism of its polished
See
surface,
the iPad slips from my
scattering a
hands,
rainbow
clattering
across
onto the
sacred
counter.
space. Sylvie bent
Chloe.
slowly to pick it up,
The
her
name
fingers closing around the
was
cold
vaguely
stone.
familiar.
Inside,
Hadn't
she
Daniel
felt a
mentioned a
tremor
new
of
client
courage.
named Chloe a
The
few
map
months
her
ago?
husband had entrusted.
My mind reeled,
Only to
trying
her,
to piece
the
together
map
when this
carved
might
into
have
that very
started.
crystal lay
How
in
I
her
could have
palm,
missed the signs,
unseen until now.
especially on her
Its
birthday.
glow, subtle but
The
undeniable,
words burned into my
pulsed with
vision.
promise. Walter
He'd
Keene
chosen
hesitated,
today
his
deliberately.
eyes following her gesture.
My birthday.
The law and his
To run
conscience
off with
waged
another
their
woman.
secret.
Don't
War in
remember
the
driving to
silence
the
that
lake
followed.
house.
And then, at
The
that
2-hour
moment of
journey
suspended
passed in a
fate,
blur of
Sylvie
numbness,
met his
punctuated
gaze.
by moments of
I didn't
searing
ask
clarity.
for saving, she
8
whispered.
years of marriage.
I'm asking for
The
what's
fertility
mine.
treatments
The
we've been
Marshal's
discussing.
hand twitched on the parchment.
The anniversary trip
He
to
took a
Bali we
breath that seemed
planned.
to echo
For
through
next
the
month.
chapel like distant thunder.
All
Before
lies.
we jump back in,
When I
tell
pulled
us
onto the gravel
where you're
driveway of our
from.
lake house,
If this
my
story
hands
moves
were
you,
steady.
please subscribe.
Too steady.
Tomorrow,
I felt
I have a
disconnected
special
from my
story
body,
for you.
as if
Asterisk.
watching myself from a distance
Part
as
2.
I walked to the front
The
door
days
and
that
used my
followed were a
key.
blur of charred timber,
The cabin was
bruised
empty,
knuckles, and
but
raw
someone
resolve.
had been there recently.
Maureen's farmstead,
2 wine glasses
once
sat
the
on the
lifeline
coffee
of her
table,
marriage and the promise
one
for
with a
her
smudge
child,
of lipstick,
now stood
a
as a
shade I
blackened
never
skeleton
wore.
against the
I
relentless
walked
sun.
through each room mechanically.
Neighbors came and went. Some
The
offered
bedroom
hollow
told the final
condolences.
story.
Others
Rumpled
dropped
sheets,
off canned goods
the scent
and
of
blankets
unfamiliar
before disappearing
perfume,
back into
a
their
woman's
own
earring
safe
on the
little
nightstand.
worlds. None stayed.
Not mine. Never
None
mind.
wanted to be caught in the
I
storm
sank onto
that
the
brewed
edge of the
around a
bed,
widow
finally allowing
who
tears to fall.
refused to bow.
My phone buzzed
Inside
again.
what was left of her home,
Olivia.
Maureen set up camp.
Meg? It's
She
been
dragged
hours.
her iron cook stove
What's going
out of the
on?
rubble and
I
propped it
tried
under
to
the
speak, but
surviving
only a
lean-to.
sob escaped.
The nights grew
I'm
colder
coming
now.
over, she said
The embers
immediately.
she stoked at
Don't
dusk
move.
were all that kept her warm
I'm not at
and
home,
kept the
I
memories from
managed.
smothering her alive.
I'm at the lake house.
She did not
The lake house?
weep.
Why?
She did not beg.
Because
Instead,
that's where Daniel
each
brought
morning
her.
she rose before dawn,
Her?
brushing soot
What are you
from her
talking
hair
about?
and humming
His mistress.
lullabies to the child
The woman
she
he left
carried
me
under her
for.
ribs.
Today.
News of her defiance
my
spread
birthday.
like prairie fire.
The silence on
Men
the other
who'd
end
laughed
lasted
when the
only a
thugs rode
second
in to
before
teach the widow a
Olivia's
lesson,
voice came
now
back,
watched
tight
her
with
an
controlled
uneasy
fury.
respect.
I'll be there in
They
2
whispered
hours.
that the
Don't do
gunslinger
anything until I
Callahan was
arrive.
still out there,
After hanging
hunting
up,
the men
I
who
sat
torched
motionless,
the barn,
staring
the
at
field,
nothing.
the cradle.
Then my gaze fell on
She'd
Daniel's
built with her
laptop
own
bag in the
hands.
corner.
They wondered if
He
he'd
never
come
went
back for
anywhere
her.
without it,
Some hoped he would.
which meant he'd be back.
Others feared what his
Or
return
perhaps
might
he'd left
mean.
it deliberately.
One evening,
Another
as
piece
a
of his
low
life
wind
he
rattled
was
the remaining
shedding.
shingles overhead,
I
Maureen
moved toward
sat
it,
carving
driven
initials
by the
into a
same self-destructive
scrap of
impulse that had
unburned
made me
beam,
check
her
the
husband's
iPad.
hers, and the
More
child's yet
evidence?
to come.
More pain?
She paused
What
when
was
she
I
heard
hoping
the
to
crunch
find?
of footsteps on the path.
Inside was his laptop,
Her hand
a
slipped to
notebook,
the double-barrel
and a small
shotgun
velvet
resting by
box.
her ankle.
My hand
Easy,
trembled as I
Mrs.
lifted it.
A voice
Too
drawled.
big for a ring.
A figure stepped
I
into
opened
the
it
flickering
slowly to reveal
firelight
a
then,
beautiful emerald
wiry,
necklace.
smelling of tobacco,
My birthstone.
and regret.
There
Names Whitaker.
was a small card
used
inside.
to ride with your
To
husband.
my Megan on her 35th
Got
birthday.
wind you might need a hand.
The first of many we'll
Maureen's
celebrate in our
eyes
new
narrowed.
adventure.
She took in his
All
threadbare
my
coat,
love,
the patched boots,
Daniel, I stared
the
at it,
revolver that swung low
uncomprehending.
on his hip.
A birthday gift?
And why would I trust
from
a
the
drifter
husband
with
who
a
had
dead
just
man's
abandoned me
stories?
for another woman.
Whitaker sank
And then
to
I
his
saw the
haunches,
notebook.
the flames
I
dancing
flipped it
in his
open to find
bloodshot
a
eyes.
handwritten list,
The men
finished
that burned you out
paperwork,
ain't done,
birthday
Mrs.
gift for M,
They're just
final
waiting,
meeting while
waiting for
Chloe
you to
Reed,
run or
Parker
break.
account transfer,
He spat
pack
into the
overnight
dirt.
bag for surprise,
I reckon you'd rather
confirm
stand.
reservation our
She
vineyard,
looked past
get
him
ring
to
cleaned.
the road that
My head
vanished into the
spun.
midnight dark.
Nothing made sense.
Somewhere out there, her
The
enemies
emails,
drank to her
the empty
ruin.
bed, the wine
Somewhere
glasses,
out there,
the lipstick,
Callahan's shadow
they all
moved
told
between
one
the
story.
pines.
But the
a
necklace,
promise wrapped in
this
a legend.
list, they suggested
you're
something
right,
entirely different.
Maureen said.
The sound of
Voice
tires
soft,
on
but
gravel
steel
cut through my
cord.
confusion.
She leveled her
A car
gaze
door
at
slammed.
Whitaker.
Footsteps.
But you ride for me
Approached.
now, or you don't ride at
I
all.
stood frozen.
He grinned,
The velvet box
a gap
still in my
smile
hand,
that hinted
as the
at
front
old
door
sins
opened.
and older debts.
Daniel
Then let's
stood
get to
there,
work.
his expression
And
shifting from
So it
surprise to
was that the
confusion to
burned-out
alarm.
widow and the drifter began
Megan?
to stitch a defense
What
from
are you
the
doing
ashes.
here?
They
How did
laid
you—
traps in the gullies,
This wasn't
sharpened
supposed to
fence
happen.
posts into spears, and
Behind
set
him appeared a
lanterns
woman,
where they'd blind a
slim,
man riding in
dark-haired,
blind.
professionally dressed.
Every night,
She looked equally
Whitaker
startled
taught her
to
how
see
to
me.
steady her aim,
Mrs.
how to
Warren,
listen
she
for
said,
footsteps that
I'm
lied.
Chloe Parker,
And
your
every
husband's
night
new
Maureen
client. She
slept
glanced at
with
Daniel.
one hand on her belly,
I think we have
the
a
other
problem.
wrapped around the
Think
cold
we have a
stock
problem.
of her
Think we have—
father's
For
rifle.
several seconds,
Word
nobody
drifted through
moved.
the saloons and
I
church
stood
pews
clutching
alike.
the velvet box
widow would
containing the
not
emerald
leave.
necklace,
And if
staring at my
Callahan was
husband
coming,
and the woman he'd
God
called
help the
Chloe
men who
Parker,
dared to stand in his
the
way.
same name from the email
By the
that had
time
shattered
dawn
my
split
world
the
just
horizon
hours
in
ago.
ribbons of rust and gold.
Client?
Maureen was more than just a
I
name
finally
whispered
managed,
on the wind.
my voice barely above
She
a
was
whisper.
a line drawn in blood
Daniel
and fire,
stepped toward me,
and
confusion etched
the
across
storm
his
she'd
face.
summon would be one no soul
Megan,
in those
what's
hills
going
would
on?
ever forget.
You weren't supposed to be here
Part
until
3.
tonight.
By the third morning,
Tonight?
the farm
I
looked like
repeated
the
numbly.
aftermath of a savage
For your
hunt.
birthday surprise.
Maureen Marcellus
His eyes
stood
dropped
at
to
the
the
crest
velvet
of the
box
ridge,
in my
her
hand,
figure
then
etched
darted
in
to his
silhouette
laptop
against the
bag open
rising
on the
sun.
couch.
Below,
Understanding
blackened
dawned in his
timbers and
expression.
uprooted fence posts
You found
lay
the
in
necklace
brutal angles.
and my notes.
Yet at her feet,
Chloe shifted
wildflowers
uncomfortably by the
stubbornly
door.
pushed through the ash.
I should give you
Their
two some
petals like
privacy.
defiant cries.
No,
Whitaker rode up the
I
lane,
said sharply, finding
his
my
horse's
voice.
hooves
I
cloaked
think
in
you should
dust.
explain the email.
He dismounted,
Daniel
running
and
a
Chloe
calloused hand
exchanged
through his
bewildered
tangled hair.
glances.
There was
What
something
email?
both haunted
Daniel
and
asked.
awed in his eyes
I
as he
pulled out my
approached her.
phone, opened
We've
the
got
iPad
word.
synced email
2
app,
riders
and thrust
headed
it toward
this
them,
way, Clayton
displaying the
Briggs
damning
and the Nolan
message.
brothers.
Today's
They
the
reckon
day.
it's personal now.
I've packed everything as we discussed.
Maureen's lips curved
Meet me
in a
at
thin
7:30 at our
smile.
spot,
Let
and then
them
we're
come.
free.
We'll be ready.
Chloe's
Inside
eyes
the
widened
makeshift
as she
cabin
read.
they'd erected
Then
from salvaged
unexpectedly
boards,
she laughed.
The plan took shape.
The sound was so
Whitaker
incongruous
spread a
with the
tattered
tension in the
canvas
room
map
that I
on a
nearly
rickety
flinched.
table.
Oh, God,
He pointed to
she
3
said,
choke
covering her
points where the
mouth.
ridge fell
I see the
toward
problem.
creek.
Mrs.
We
Warren,
hole up here,
Megan,
and if they split
I
up right
corrected
here.
automatically.
Her finger traced
Megan,
the lines.
I'm not
Each
having an
spot
affair with your
offered an
husband.
advantage. High
I'm his
ground,
client,
cover of thicket,
and I'm also
a narrow
engaged to be
ford
married
where
this
no horse
weekend.
could charge.
My gaze
She
dropped
looked
to
at
her
him,
left hand,
measuring.
where an
Your
impressive
horse?
diamond
He
ring
blinked.
sparkled.
I took the Grey
How had I
Mare
missed
for my
that
last
before?
escapade. She's fast.
The email was about a surprise I've
will
been
you
planning
need
for my fiancé.
her?
She continued.
Maureen's gaze
Daniel
turned to the
has been
barn
helping me with
skeleton.
financial
The
arrangements
old
to
repair
purchase a
horse
vacation
still
property,
lingered, ribs
our own
showing
lake
beneath
house,
a dull
actually.
coat.
That's why we're
She's
here
yours.
today,
If
to
you need a
finalize the
ride
paperwork
away,
for a
I'll
similar
fight
property
here.
down the
He
shore.
frowned.
I looked
I
at
won't
Daniel,
leave
who
you.
was
She slid the map
staring at
across
me with
the
growing
planks.
concern.
Then fight like you
But
mean
you
it.
left your wedding ring,
They spent the
I
day
said,
crafting their
my
defenses.
certainty beginning to crumble.
Sharpened
It was on
stakes
the bathroom
rose like
sink this
silent
morning.
sentinels.
Daniel's hand
Along
flew
the
to his bare
ford,
ring finger, his
Tripwires
expression
linked barrel
shifting to
traps
dismay.
hidden under leaf litter.
I took it off
Behind
to clean
each,
it last night.
a cache
It
of
was
old
on my
rifles.
list.
Jonas
The jeweler
and
said the
Whitaker's
settings were loose.
gleamed in the last light.
He patted his
That
pockets
night,
frantically.
Maureen labored over a makeshift cradle.
I must have forgotten
a
to put it
simple
back
cot of
on.
planks and rope.
Megan,
She hummed
you think
Jonah's lullaby
that
as
you
she
were
sanded
leaving
the
me?
edges smooth.
on my birthday?
Baby
My
was
voice
due
cracked.
any moment now,
The
but
empty
she
bed,
refused to
the
cower.
cryptic email,
If her daughter
your
was
assistant
born
saying
under
you
these
took a
cruel
personal day,
skies,
the
she
wine
would
glasses
face the
here,
world with the same
with lipstick, the
steel-dotted
rumpled
dusk.
sheets,
Whitaker
wine
found her
glasses.
painting the
Daniel
cradle's
looked
legs
genuinely
with a mixture
perplexed.
of coal ash and oil.
We all turned toward the coffee table
Ancient
where two
symbol to
used
ward
wine
off
glasses
evil.
sat,
He
one with
settled
a
beside
distinctive
her.
lipstick smudge.
You ever been scared?
Chloe stepped
She
closer,
paused,
examining
brush in
them.
midair.
Those
Every
weren't there
day.
when we arrived.
Fear's a
We just
companion,
got here
but I
about
don't let it sit at the
5
table.
minutes before you.
He pressed her
A
hand.
chill ran down my
If
spine.
they kill us, then
Then
they'll know
who-
they died trying to take a
The
mother's
sound
courage.
of the back door
The
opening
wind
answered my
picked up,
question.
carrying
A
distant
tall man with
hoofbeats that
dark
rolled
hair
like
walked
thunder.
in, stopping
Across
abruptly
the
when he saw the
hills,
three of us standing
Maureen
in the living
rose,
room.
slinging her shotgun
Jason,
over her shoulder.
Chloe exclaimed.
They're close.
What are you doing
Time
here?
to wake our hounds.
The man, Jason,
Outside,
looked
in
equally
the fiery
shocked.
flush of dawn,
Chloe,
the first
I was just
silhouettes
dropping
appeared
off
at
the-
the ridge's far edge.
He stopped,
Two
noticing
riders,
Daniel and me.
dust-choked and
Who
grim,
are they?
spurred
This is
toward
Daniel
them.
Warren, my
Clayton
financial
Briggs,
advisor,
his face a
Chloe,
mask of cold
said
indulgence,
slowly.
blasted a swaggering
And his wife,
laugh.
Megan.
Behind
Daniel,
him,
Megan.
the Nolan brothers
This is Jason
leaned low in their
Reeves,
saddles.
my fiancé.
Maureen stood tall.
Jason's
The shotgun
surprise gave
steel
way to a
reflected
flash
the
of guilt
sunrise.
before he carefully
Whitaker
composed
took
his
the foal's
expression.
reins, stepping back
Nice
to
to
watch
meet
her
you.
lead. The
How did you
valley
get
held
in?
its breath as the
Daniel
riders
asked.
plunged down
The back door was
the
unlocked.
slope.
Jason
then as the
said
gang
too
swept
quickly.
into the trap's
I
kill
moved
zone,
toward the coffee table,
sparks
pointing
flew
to the wine
and thunder
glasses.
cracked.
Are these
Barrel
yours?
traps exploded
Jason
in
stared
a
at the
cloud
glasses,
of debris.
then at Chloe,
Trip
who was
wires
watching
yanked
him
at
with
horses'
growing
legs,
suspicion.
bringing riders
Jason?
down in a tangle
Chloe's
of wood
voice
and steel.
had
A shot
dropped to
rang
a
out
dangerous
sharp and
octave.
sure, and a Nolan brother
Whose
pitched
lipstick is
forward.
that?
Another
The
gale
back
of
door
shotgun
opened again,
blasts shattered
and a
the
blonde
morning
woman in her
calm.
20s
Clayton
peered
Briggs
in.
wheeled his horse,
Jason,
rage
did
igniting
you find
his
the...
eyes.
She froze
She's a
when
witch,
she saw all
a
of us.
devil's spawn.
Oh.
Maureen's
The
voice cut
pieces
through the
clicked
smoke.
together in an instant.
She's my child.
The wine glasses,
and you'll pay for
the
every
rumpled
spark you
sheets,
strike against her
the
world.
unfamiliar perfume,
Briggs reined in
the
for a
woman's
fast
earring.
draw, but Whitaker's rifle
Jason
barked
and this
once,
unknown
catching
blonde had been
Clayton's
using our lake house.
horse in the flank.
Not Daniel
The
and
beast
Chloe.
bolted, hurling its
Amber?
rider into the dust.
Chloe's voice was barely
Whitaker
controlled.
galloped forward,
My maid of
gun
honor?
leveled. You
A
with
thick,
me, Maureen?
uncomfortable
She nodded,
silence filled
barrels
the room
raised.
as the tangled
For
web
my
of
daughter's
misunderstandings
dawn.
and betrayals
And as
became
the sun
clear.
finally broke free
I
of the
wasn't
horizon,
the one being cheated
the
on.
clash rang out
Chloe
2
was.
against 3.
And I had
Mother's
jumped to
steel and
catastrophic
drifters' fire
conclusions about
against
my own
vengeance's
marriage
fury.
based on circumstantial
Before the
evidence.
echo faded.
Daniel.
Maureen's laugh wild
Moved to my
and
side,
unbroken rose
gently
above
taking the velvet
gunfire.
box from my hand.
They thought to burn
I was
her
planning to
world.
bring you here tonight.
Instead,
I've
they
spent
ignited
weeks
its
organizing a
fiercest
surprise
protector,
party
to
for
be
your
continued.
birthday.
This story
A
took us a
party?
long time.
I echoed
if
weakly.
you like it, subscribe.
Everyone's coming up this
Now
evening.
back
Olivia,
to
Eric,
the story.
your sister,
The
all our
acrid
friends.
smoke still clung to the morning
glanced
air
at his
when
watch.
Maureen surveyed the
Well,
aftermath.
in about 4 hours,
3 of Briggs's men
I
lay
took the day
groaning
off to
among
set everything
shattered
up.
traps and
but I
ruined
had this
saddles.
final meeting with Chloe
Only
first.
his brothers had dared to
I
flee
leaned
back
against
the
him,
ridge's tangled
relief
path.
washing over me in
The
such a
sun
powerful
climbed.
wave that my knees
Higher,
nearly buckled.
gilding the creek below.
I thought you were
where
leaving.
wildflowers danced
Me,
unafraid in the
never,
golden light.
he whispered,
Whitaker
wrapping
rode
his arm
alongside
around
her,
my waist.
his face streaked with dirt
Across
and blood,
the room, an
exhaustion
entirely
in his posture,
different
yet
drama
fire
was
in his
unfolding.
eyes.
Chloe
sweeter
was
than I
confronting
reckoned,
Jason
he
and
admitted.
Amber, her
His
voice
rough.
rising with each
Maureen's
accusation.
pale cheeks flushed,
Jason
not
was
with shame,
fumbling through denials
with
that
life.
grew less,
No one tells a
convincing
story
by the
worth
second,
hearing without
while
sweat.
Amber looked like she wanted
replied.
the floor to
Come
swallow
on,
her whole.
we gotta move the
How
wounded.
long? Chloe demanded.
They buried
just
the
a
dead
few
and
times,
hastily dug
Jason
graves
said
beneath
weakly.
the oaks, and
It
piled
didn't
the
mean
wounded
anything.
on an old wagon frame.
We're getting married in 3
Maureen
days.
worked efficiently,
Daniel cleared his
binding
throat.
cuts and offering
Maybe we
sips
should
of
give them some
brandy she'd
privacy.
hoarded.
We
Each
stepped
man she
outside onto the
dressed
porch,
looked at her
the
differently, not with
sounds
fear,
of the
but
escalating
reverence
argument
stopped by
fading as
afternoon.
Daniel closed the door
ridge's
behind
slopes
us.
were empty.
For a
Only
moment,
scattering
we
of
stood in
spent
silence,
shells and clumps of
the
horsehair
afternoon
remained
sun
as
warming
mute
my face
witnesses.
as the emotional
Maureen
whirlwind
loaded
of the past
rifle
few
she'd
hours
seized
began
from
to
Clayton
settle.
Briggs himself.
I'm so
Why do you
sorry,
keep that?
I finally
Whitaker
said,
asked, not
leaning
her
against
gaze
the porch
drifted to
railing.
the steel its barrel,
I saw
etched
that
with
email
flooring
and just
marks. To
spiraled.
remind me, she
Daniel
said
took my
softly.
hand, his
That
thumb
evil
gently
wears a
caressing
man's
my
face.
knuckles.
Night fell
I should have been
swiftly,
clearer
and with
about
it,
everything.
an uneasy silence.
And I definitely
The
shouldn't
creek's
have
soft
left my
murmur,
ring on the
and
sink. That
the
was
hoot
careless.
of an owl were the only sounds
He reached
as
into his
Maureen stood
pocket and
watch,
pulled out my birthday
cradling
gift,
her rifle
opening
when
the
the chill
box again.
pressed too hard.
This was supposed
Then,
to be the first
far
part of
on
your
the ridge,
surprise.
a single lantern bobbed.
The emerald necklace
Whitaker
glittered in the
squinted,
sunlight,
looking for clues
even more
or
beautiful
more
than
trouble.
I'd first realized.
Maureen felt her pulse
It's
quicken.
your
They might be
birthstone,
scouting, waiting
he
for another
explained
strike.
unnecessarily.
They moved silently
And
toward the glow.
He turned the
Beneath
pendant
a
over
craggy
to reveal a
promontory,
tiny
they
inscription
found
on the
one of
back.
Briggs's.
Look closer.
Nolan Brothers.
I squinted
bound
at
to
the
a
delicate
sapling,
engraving.
beaten but alive.
For new beginnings.
His eyes flicked
New
between them with a
beginnings?
mixture of
I
defiance
asked,
and pleading.
looking up at him.
Maureen stepped forward.
Daniel took a deep breath.
Rifle leveled so his gaze
I thought
could
it was
not meet
appropriate,
hers.
considering
Word
the
to
news
your
I got
kin,
yesterday.
she said quietly.
His eyes
There'll
shone with what I
be
now
no mercy if they force my farm
recognized
to
as
ashes
excitement,
again.
not guilt.
She cocked the rifle.
Remember that
You'll
fertility
ride
specialist
back
we
with a
saw
message,
last
and you'll
month?
deliver it with your
My
life.
heart stuttered.
The man's face
We'd been
paled.
trying to have a
He
baby for
gulped.
nearly 2 years.
I understand,
With nothing but
Maureen
disappointment
nodded.
each time.
Tell them you saw the storm
Daniel.
rising. Whitaker
He
cut
called
him
yesterday
free.
with our latest results.
Man
treatment
fell to
worked,
his knees,
Megan.
trembling.
The new approach
Go,
worked.
Maureen ordered.
There's nothing stopping
Take
us
the
from
trail
starting a
behind
family
the
now.
creek. It'll
Tears
lead you
welled
to
in my
Clayton's
eyes as
return
his
camp.
words sank in.
He scuttled off into
This
the
was
night,
what he'd been planning.
disappearing like a
To
frightened
tell me
rabbit.
tonight,
When he was gone,
not that he was
Maureen
leaving,
exhaled,
but that our
lowering
greatest
her
wish
rifle.
might finally come
now
true.
we wait, but the
That's
waiting
what
was
I
not
meant
idle.
by our new
Whitaker
adventure in the
gathered
card,
wood for the fire
he continued,
while Maureen
wiping a
retreated
tear
inside
from my
the
cheek.
lean-to with
I
her
wanted
hand
tonight to be
pressed to her
perfect.
belly.
All our
The
friends
child
and
within
family here
stirred,
to celebrate
a
both your
reminder of what she
birthday and
fought
this
for.
new chapter.
She closed her eyes,
I threw my arms around
envisioning a morning
him,
not yet dawned,
burying my
a
face
home
against his
rebuilt,
chest.
laughter in the fields,
I feel so
a daughter's
stupid.
tiny fingers wrapped
Don't,
around.
he murmured into my
Hers.
hair. If I'd
Outside,
found what you
the
found,
crackle of the
I
fire
probably
stirred
would have
Whitaker's
assumed the
voice.
worst too.
They'll think twice,
The door behind
he
us
murmured.
opened,
She
and Chloe
opened her
emerged
eyes
alone.
and met his gaze.
Her eyes
They'll try,
red-rimmed, but
and when they do,
her posture
we'll
still
be
straight.
here.
I'm
All through
sorry
the
about
night,
that,
she lay awake,
she said with remarkable
listening
composure.
for hoofbeats.
It seems I was the
listening for
one
the
being
thunder of
deceived,
oncoming.
not you.
Rage, and as
Chloe,
the first pale
I'm so
fingers of
sorry,
dawn brushed the sky,
I said,
she
genuine
knew they
empathy
would not
replacing the
wait
jealousy
long.
and suspicion I'd
The
felt
crack of
toward her
dawn
just
had
an hour
barely
ago.
broken the horizon when
She
bells
waved
rang
away
a warning through.
my sympathy
Dustin's
with a
Creek,
brittle smile.
the town's solitary
The wedding's
church
off,
flung
obviously,
open its doors,
but
and
we still
residents
have
poured
business
into the
to conclude,
streets,
Mr. Warren,
mud-slick boots
if you don't
pounding
mind.
wooden boards.
I'd like to
Their eyes
finalize the
were
property paperwork.
wide with
It
dreadsome
seems I'll
carried
be needing a
rifles,
place of
other
my own
scythes
after all.
sharpened like guillotines,
Daniel
all bound
looked at
by
me
a single
questioningly.
purpose.
I nodded.
Stand with
Go
Maureen
ahead.
Marcellus or
I should
watch
call
their
Olivia
homes burn.
anyway.
From
She's
the
probably
ridge,
halfway here by
Maureen
now,
watched the
thinking she needs
townsfolk
to help me
assemble.
bury a body.
Beside her,
As Daniel
Whitaker
and Chloe
adjusted
went back
his hat,
inside, I
eyes
pulled out my
narrowed
phone to
against the
call
morning
Olivia,
glare.
still
Their
processing the
makeshift
emotional
forehead
roller
groaned,
coaster of the
barricades
day.
of barrel frames,
From believing
stakes
my
driven
marriage
point
was
first into
over
the
to
earth,
discovering a new
and even
beginning
a
was on the
hastily rigged
horizon,
steel cable
all on my
across the creek
35th
that
birthday.
would catch
Some
any rider
celebration this
foolish
was
enough
turning
to
out to
charge.
be. Was
Looks
turning
like the
out to
whole
be.
valley's
Was
rising.
turning out. So
Whitaker
let me get
muttered,
this straight,
She nodded,
Olivia said,
pressing a hand
perched
to
on the
her
edge of the
belly.
deck chair
If
beside
they
me as
crossed
we
that
looked out
cable,
over the lake.
they catch hell on
You
two
thought
sides.
Daniel was having an
Below,
affair with
the
Chloe,
Nolan
but
brother
actually
returned,
Chloe's fiancé
staggering
was
with
having an
fright.
affair with her
He
maid of
spat in the dirt,
honor,
wordless,
and they were
then
using your
turned and
lake
fled
house to
back
do
toward
it?
the ridge.
That about
Maureen's
sums it
gaze
up,
followed him,
I replied,
unwavering.
taking a sip
Out
of the
on the
emergency
horizon,
wine
a
she'd
cloud
brought
of
when I
dust
called to
bloomed
explain
like
the
a wound.
situation.
Riders,
Olivia
dozens
shook
of
her
them,
head in
spurred
disbelief.
southward.
And all this
War
happened on
paint
your
streaked
birthday,
across their
the same day
faces.
Daniel was planning to
Clayton
tell you
Briggs
about
rode
the
at their
fertility
head,
treatment
vengeance
results
in
and
his
throw you
stare.
a surprise party?
They were armed to the teeth.
The universe
Rifles,
has a twisted
pistols,
sense of
hatchets
humor.
mercy long ago stripped
Inside the
away.
lake house, Daniel
Maureen
and Eric
raised
were
her
setting
rifle,
up for the party
citing
that would begin
this
in less
story
than
took us
2
a long
hours.
time.
After Chloe
If
had
you
left,
like it, subscribe.
alone, her
Now
engagement
back to the
officially
story.
terminated. Daniel
Frontman
had
as
called
he
Eric
reached
to
for
come
his
early
smoking
and help
pistol.
salvage what was left of my
Whitaker's
birthday
rifle barked a
surprise.
warning shot, clipping
I still
the ground
can't
at the
believe you
lead.
jumped to "my husband
Riders'
is
feet,
leaving me so
dust
quickly,"
exploded.
Olivia
Shouts rose
said,
like a dying
giving
ember.
me a thoughtful look.
Chaos erupted.
"That's not like you,
Briggs
Meg.
thundered his
You're
horse
usually
forward.
the rational one."
Nolan's men
I stared
fanned
out at the
like a
water,
hand,
considering her
but Maureen
observation.
and Whitaker held their ground.
I think it was finding his
Barrage
wedding
of
ring.
bullets filled
He never
the air,
takes it off.
and every time a rider fell,
I twisted my own
a
ring
cheer
absently.
erupted from the defenders.
And then that
Then
email,
Briggs himself
it seemed
thundered
so clear.
toward the cable.
But things aren't always
He
what
laughed,
they seem, are
leaning
they?
low in the saddle as his
Her
brother
tone held
suppressed
something
their
I couldn't
horses
quite
beyond.
identify.
Whitaker
Clearly
leveled
not,
a shot
I
at the
agreed.
lead rider.
Though I do
Clayton
feel bad for
Briggs's
Chloe.
pistol barked in the narrow
Finding
gap
out your
before the
fiancé is
cable,
cheating with your
its
maid of honor
report
3 days
ricocheting
before your
off the
wedding?
ridge's stone walls.
That's brutal.
He spurred his horse
Olivia
forward,
hummed in agreement,
confidence
then
blazing
reached
in
for
his
her
eyes.
bag.
Too close.
Speaking
He
of your
thought,
birthday,
too easy.
I still have your
But
present.
the cable snapped taut.
She pulled out a wrapped
With a
package and
deafening
handed
crack,
it to me.
it snagged the
You didn't
horse's
have
legs
to.
and yanked
Of
the
course
steed
I
9
did.
feet into the
It's
air.
your 35th.
The animal
That's a
pitched forward,
milestone.
rider and saddle both
I carefully
convulsing
unwrapped
in
the
midair
gift to
before
find a
crashing
beautiful
into a
leather-bound
tangle of
photo
broken
album.
wood and screaming.
Opening it, I found it
Briggs
filled
rolled.
with pictures spanning my
Free,
entire friendship
blood
with
splattering
Olivia,
his cheek,
from
then lunged
college
for his
through my
pistol.
wedding to holiday
His men
gatherings and
hesitated,
weekend
dread
trips.
surfacing in a
Liv,
moment of shock.
this is
Whitaker
amazing.
seized the opening.
Keep going,
From
she
behind Maureen's
encouraged.
barricade,
The last page
his
is the best
rifle
part.
spoke twice. One
I
shot
flipped to the
clipped
final
reins of
page
the
where I
nearest
found a
man-at-arms.
single photo of
The
Olivia and
second
me from
smashed
just
the
last
wheel of an
month,
approaching
arms
wagon.
around each other at her
Dust
lakeside
and gleaming
cabin.
metal cascaded
Tucked
through
into
the morning
the
light.
corner of the
Maureen
page
steadied,
was a small envelope.
her breathing,
Inside
finger
was a
brushing
card
the
that
trigger
read,
guard of her rifle.
"For your next chapter."
She pivoted and sighted
Your
the
journey
attackers
inspired
cutting
me to
toward
start
her
my
left
own.
flank too.
Appointment
Riders
confirmed for
weaving
next
through the
Tuesday at
trees.
2 p.m.
Her shot knocked
Dr.
the reins
Melissa
from one's
Chen,
hand,
fertility
spinning
specialist.
horse and rider to the earth.
I looked up at Olivia,
The second man floundered,
stunned.
dropped his
"You're
pistol
starting
in panic.
fertility treatments?"
She spared
She
no
nodded,
time for
suddenly
satisfaction.
looking nervous.
With a swift
After
kick to
seeing
the ground,
how you and
she
Daniel have
vaulted atop
handled the whole
barricade,
process,
offering
the
Whitaker cover
disappointments, the
dock
hope,
below.
the perseverance,
Townsfolk surged
it
forward,
made me realize
angry
I don't
and
need to wait
determined.
for the perfect
Women loaded
relationship
rifles.
to start the family I've
Blacksmith
always
Booth
wanted.
hefted a hammer bigger
Liv.
than his arm,
I reached
forging
for her
makeshift
hand.
pikes.
"You're going to
Children
be an
watched
amazing
wide-eyed
mother."
from doorways,
"I hope so,"
knowing they'd
she
be
said,
told about
squeezing
this
my
day for
fingers.
the rest of their lives.
"I've lined up a
The
donor
castle
through the
of
clinic's
corpses
program,
but lead
and I was
inch
hoping,
nearer.
well,
Nolan's
that you
men
might come with
reforming
me to the
ranks
first
despite the
appointment.
chaos.
Since you're practically
Briggs
an
staggered
expert
to
on
his
the
feet,
process by
face a
now,
mask of fury.
I'd be honored.
He glared at Maureen,
Tears welled in my
voice
eyes
raw.
for what felt like
You
the
burn with a
100th
fire
time
no
that
kin can
day.
match.
But these were
She
happy
leveled
tears.
her rifle, calm as
Our
sunrise.
kids could grow up together.
Then you'll drown
That's
in.
what I was thinking.
Sparks.
She
He charged
smiled,
again,
then
rifling
glanced at
his
her
pistol
watch.
like a scorpion.
We should
Each
probably
round
go
he
help the
fired
guys.
spat hot
Your
death into
guests
the
will be
air,
arriving soon.
But the widow was faster.
Inside,
Her shot
Daniel
rang
and
clear,
Eric had transformed
striking
the living
Briggs's
room.
gun wrist.
String
He
lights
howled,
twinkled from the
dropping
ceiling
to one
beams.
knee.
A happy
Blood
birthday
trickled
banner
down
hung across the fireplace,
his forearm.
and several gift
He aimed
bags
with
sat on a
trembling
side
hand.
table.
Desperation
The wine
giving
glasses
him
that had
uncanny
caused so
focus,
much
until
confusion
Maureen's
earlier
barrel
were
swept
long
around
gone,
and caught
replaced
the
by
moonlight off the
champagne
hammer.
flutes,
The outlaw's eyes
arranged neatly
widened.
on a tray.
He raised his
Daniel
good hand
looked up
in
as we
defeat.
entered, his face
Silence
lighting up when
slammed
he saw
across
me.
the battlefield.
Even after
For
8
an
years of
instant
marriage,
lifetime.
that look
Then
still
from
made
the
my
ridge
heart
beyond,
skip.
hoofbeats
Just
and
in
laughter.
time, he said.
Toby Nolan emerged,
We need a woman's
riding
opinion
bareback,
on the food
face
arrangement.
cut by splinters and
I
sweat.
moved to his side,
Briggs falls,
leaning into him
and
as
you
he
all
slipped an
pause?
arm around my
He
waist.
shouted. Is this woman
Everything
a witch or a
looks
demon?
beautiful.
Whitaker's voice cut through.
Wait until you see what else
She's
I have
every
planned,
mother's wrath,
he murmured
Nolan
close
sneered,
to my ear.
rallying the
That
remaining
necklace
men.
was just the beginning.
They charged with
Eric
a
cleared
roar
his
that
throat.
shook stones.
And that's my cue to
Loose
check
from
on
the
the ice
cliffside.
situation.
But by now
He
the
headed for the
defenders
kitchen,
had found their
Olivia
rhythm.
following to help.
Blacksmith Booth repelled
Alone
the
for a
first
moment,
wave with brute
Daniel
force.
turned to face
Two
me.
sharpshooters on the
Are we
ridge's
okay?
flank picked off the
After
horsemen
everything?
one by one.
That
and
happened
Maureen's
today.
rifle sang death.
I considered the question,
To every advance,
thinking about the emotional
Toby Nolan
whiplash of the
refused
past
to die
several
so
hours.
easily. He leapt into
We're
the
more
fray,
than okay,
sword raised,
I said finally.
targeting Whitaker.
But I think
Maureen
we need to work on our
intercepted,
communication.
her shotgun stock
If I'd known
connecting
about
with
your
Nolan's
meeting with
skull
Chloe,
in a
or
bone-shattering
why you'd
blow.
taken off your ring,
He crumpled,
you're right,
unconscious
he agreed
at that,
immediately.
the remnants of Nolan's
And if I'd told you
cadre
about the
balked.
fertility,
They looked at their
specialists
fallen
call
leaders,
right away
the
instead of
smoking
planning
rifles,
this
the
elaborate
unbroken
surprise.
barrier
But
of
then
townsfolk,
it wouldn't
and
have been
turned
a
to flee.
surprise,
Maureen
I
watched
pointed
them
out.
go, chest heaving,
Daniel
heart
smiled,
pounding
tucking
as
a
the
strand of
adrenaline
hair
ebbed.
behind my ear.
Around her,
True.
cheers rose a hymn
Though I could have
composed of
done without
relief,
the part
vengeance, and
You thought I
newfound
was
hope.
leaving you.
She sank
I
to her
shuddered at the
knees,
memory of those
tucking
dark
the rifle
hours.
beside her. Whitaker
felt so
dropped
real,
beside
Daniel.
her, hand on her shoulder,
Reading that email,
pride shining
finding
brighter
the evidence
than any
here.
metal. She pressed her
I've never
palm
been so terrified.
over her heart.
I'm
This
sorry.
dawn has cost much.
His
she
expression grew
whispered.
serious.
He squeezed her shoulder.
I never want
But
you to
it
feel that
saved
kind of fear
everything.
again.
The valley exhaled
now
around
on,
them.
No
Victory,
secrets,
hard won,
even for
and
surprises.
resonant. The
We tell
scorched
each other
earth
everything,
quivered in the morning hush,
good or
as
bad.
if remembering.
Deal.
The wrath of a mother
I
willing to
sealed the
die
promise
to
with a
protect her
kiss,
child.
which was interrupted
The
by the sound
crackdown
of
was
car
over.
doors closing
The
outside.
ridge lay empty, but for
First
the
guests
echoes
are
of
here,
battle.
Daniel said.
Maureen stood bloody
Ready for your
but
party,
unbowed,
birthday girl?
Dawn's golden fingers
I
warming
nodded,
her face.
pushing aside the
Yet,
lingering
as the
emotional
cheers
exhaustion
faded,
from earlier.
A colder whisper reached
This was
her
still
ears.
my birthday,
This victory
and now
was
there
only
was
the
even more to
opening.
celebrate.
Cord dot in the distance.
Over the next
beyond
hour,
the creek's sparkling
our
ribbon.
closest
A plume of
friends and
smoke
family
rose a
arrived.
signal on the
My
horizon.
sister Kate and her husband
Someone
from
had
the city,
rallied.
colleagues
or
from
worse,
both our workplaces,
someone new had joined
neighbors
the
from back
fray.
home.
Maureen swallowed,
Each new arrival
pressing her
brought
lips
another
tight.
layer of warmth
Whitaker
to the gathering,
approached, eyes bleak.
another reminder
Not
of the community
them, he muttered.
we'd built together.
That's on the other side
When
of Golden
everyone had
Pass.
assembled,
Her
Daniel
breath
clinked
caught.
his glass for attention.
Golden.
Thank you
Past
all
where
for coming on
Callahan's
such
old
short
gang
notice
had
to
held
celebrate
sway
Megan's
before Jonah
birthday,
drove them
he
out.
began.
A place
Some of you
of
may not
ghosts
know
and
this,
unfinished
but
scores.
today has been
Then it's more than Briggs's
eventful.
revenge we face.
A ripple of
She
laughter
said,
moved through the
voice
crowd.
thin as winter
Eric
ice.
had apparently been
Below,
filling people in
Booth gestured
on the
toward
day's
smoke.
misunderstandings.
Looks like we've got
But
company,
that's not the
missus.
only reason we've asked
Maureen
you here,
raised her rifle,
Daniel continued.
scanning
We
the
also
horizon.
have some news to share.
Figures
He looked
appeared.
at me, silently
At
asking
first
permission
just
to
dark dots
proceed.
against the gray smoke.
I nodded,
Then
stepping
riders
closer
10,
to his
20,
side.
maybe more, descending
After a
toward
long
the
journey,
town. Her
he
pulse
said,
thundered.
his voice thick with emotion.
Gather the townsfolk.
We've received
ride out
news
to
that our
meet
latest
them.
round of fertility
Whitaker's
treatments
jaw
has been
went
successful.
rigid. Risky
The
Golden
path is
Pass
clear for us to start
ambush
the
country.
family we've been hoping
She shook
for.
her head, resolve
Cheers
hardening in her
erupted,
storm-gray
along with a
eyes.
few happy
If
tears
they
from
mean
those
to
who
burn
knew how
Dustin's
long we'd been
Creek, I'll
trying.
meet.
My sister
Them on
pushed
their
through
own
the crowd
ground.
to hug me fiercely.
Behind her, the town
I'm so
stirred
happy
arms
for
readied,
you.
hearts steeled.
She
Maureen
whispered.
turned back to her people,
As the
voice
celebration
carrying
continued
across the
around
valley.
us, I found
They
myself
think they've
watching
beaten
Daniel
us.
across the room.
Let's show them the
He was
strength
engaged
of a
in
mother's
conversation
will.
with Eric and
The
a few
assembled
others,
crowd answered
but his
with a
eyes
roar,
kept finding mine,
lifting makeshift
as if he
weapons
couldn't quite
aloft.
believe how
And
close
so,
we'd come to
as the second
misunderstanding
wave
each other
thundered
so
down from
profoundly.
Golden Pass,
I
Maureen
touched the
Marcellus
emerald
led her
pendant now
ragged
hanging
army of
around my
farmers
neck
and blacksmiths and
for new
drifters
beginnings.
straight into the storm.
Despite the chaotic
The
start,
road to
my
Golden
35th
Pass wound
birthday
like a
had turned
serpent
into a
through
day of
jagged rocks and
unexpected
scrub
revelations
pines.
and renewed
Dust
commitment,
billowed in thick
both
clouds
to each
as
other and
Marine's
to the future
ragtag
we'd been
militia
working
followed
toward.
her lead, Whitaker at
Penny,
her
for your
side.
thoughts?
The early sun
Olivia
cast
appeared
long
at my
shadows,
elbow,
turning the
offering
path
a
ahead
fresh
into
glass of sparkling water.
slashes of light and
Just
dark
thinking
that
about how
danced like
differently this
specters
day
of the
could have
coming
ended,
conflict.
I admitted.
They reached the narrow
If
mouth
I
of
hadn't
Golden
found Daniel's
Pass,
notes,
the walls
or if I'd
looming
left before he
overhead,
arrived,
cold and
with
unwelcoming.
Chloe. But you
Maureen
didn't,
dismounted,
she pointed
scanning
out.
the rocky
You
corridor.
stayed.
You
Traps
gave him a
lay
chance
along
to
the edges
explain.
burlap sacks and sharpened
Because I
stakes
wanted
barely
answers,
hidden beneath
not
loose
because I
earth.
trusted him in that
Evidently,
moment. I
this
confessed.
stretch of land
The
had
guilt
been
still
prepared for
fresh.
slaughter long before
Olivia
dawn.
considered this.
She pressed her palm
Trust
to the
isn't
cool
always
rock,
blind faith,
feeling
Meg.
its pulse.
Sometimes it's being willing
They
to
know
listen
we're
even when
coming.
everything seems to
A
point
low
in the
rumble
wrong
came
direction.
from deeper within the pass.
Before I could
Shadows
respond,
shifted.
the sound of breaking
A band
glass
of
drew
riders
everyone's
emerged,
attention to the
Callahan's
kitchen
men,
doorway, where
hardened veterans scarred
Eric
by
stood looking
countless
mortified
fights.
beside a
At
shattered
their head
champagne
rode a
flute.
broad-shouldered
"Sorry,"
giant cloaked in.
he called sheepishly.
A tattered duster.
Got a little enthusiastic
Callahan
with the
himself.
toast preparation.
Time seemed to slow.
As people
The
laughed
two
and moved to
forces
help clean
eyed
up,
each other across
Daniel
the
made his
narrow
way to my
corridor.
side.
On one
"Having
side,
fun?"
the widow's
he asked,
makeshift
his
battalion,
fingers finding
armed
mine.
with promise and
"The
fury.
best birthday I never
On
expected."
the other, battle-born
"To have,"
killers led by the
I
notorious
replied honestly.
Callahan.
"It's not
Maureen
over
raised
yet,"
her rifle.
he said with a mysterious
"Name's
smile.
Marcellus," she
"I
called
have one
out,
more surprise
voice
planned for
echoing
midnight.
against stone.
Is it a surprise
burned
I'm
my
going to
home.
like? Or another
Now
one
you
that
ride
might
for
give me
your
a heart
lives.
attack?" I
Callahan's
teased.
cold laugh
"Definitely
rolled
the
like
first
thunder.
kind," he assured me.
He drew his Colt
Though after
and fired
today,
a single
I'm
round
thinking
at
I
the
should
rock
probably
wall,
just tell you.
the shot echoing
"No,"
into the chasm.
I interrupted.
"And
"Surprising.
who are you to stand in my way?"
Myself.
He challenged.
"Keep
Dot
it a
Whitaker
surprise.
nudged Maureen.
Despite everything,
"Your
I
call,
trust
Mrs.
you."
She
And I
steadied her
did,
breathing.
more deeply than
Just
I'd
a
realized
mother.
during those dark
She
hours
replied
when I'd
and
believed the
squeezed
worst.
the trigger. The bullet
Because
struck
when
the wall
faced with
dead
what
center,
looked like
kicking up
irrefutable
dust in a
evidence,
cloud that
some
framed her
part of me had
silhouette.
still needed to
That was the
understand,
signal.
to hear his
Whitaker
side of the
raised his
story.
hat, and every
That was
townsfolk
why I'd
behind
stayed
him
at the
loosened
lake
to their
house
weapons.
instead of driving away.
The clatter of rifles
That,
echoed,
I realized,
a chorus of
was
defiance.
the foundation we would
Callahan's
build our
men
next
surged
chapter
forward,
on.
shotguns
Not
blazing.
blind trust,
The pass
but the
ignited
commitment
with
to
gunfire
listen,
and war
to
cries
seek
as the two
understanding,
forces
to give each other the
clashed.
benefit of the
Maureen
doubt,
dove
even
behind
when
the boulder,
circumstances
shotgun
suggested
roaring.
otherwise.
The flintlocks
As the
thunder
evening
rattled
progressed
the
and I
rocks.
moved among our friends and
Sparks
family,
flew as
I
metal
found myself
slammed
filled
stone.
with a sense of
Whitaker's
anticipation
rifle
rather than
barked out
dread about
precise
what
shots,
midnight might bring.
felling attackers with superhuman
Whatever Daniel
calm.
had planned,
Moments
whatever
later,
challenges
a
our
bellowing
future
roar
held,
Callahan,
we would
wounded
face
in the
them
shoulder,
together,
charged at
clear-eyed,
Maureen with
honest,
merciless rage.
and connected.
She met him at the pass's
My
narrowest
35th
point,
birthday
rifle.
hadn't
At hip,
started the way I'd
eyes
expected,
blazing,
but it
he
was
swung
ending
a crowbar.
exactly where I needed to be.
She sidestepped,
where I needed to
kicking
be,
the weapon
where
down
I
the
needed.
chasm.
As the evening
The force
progressed,
spun
the lakeside
Callahan off
cabin
balance.
filled with the warm
She
buzz
pressed
of
her barrel to
conversation
his
and
chest.
laughter.
He looked into
Despite
her
the
eyes,
chaotic
steel
start
and
to my
storm.
birthday, I found
Slowly,
myself
he sank to
genuinely
his
enjoying
knees,
the celebration
cloak
Daniel
stained
had
with
planned.
blood. Behind
Friends
them,
mingled
the rebel
throughout the
militia
tile,
cheered,
open living
pressing
area,
Callahan's
spilling
men
onto the
back
deck
toward
where
the
string
pass's
lights
mouth.
reflected off the dark
The
water
narrow
beyond.
corridor became a funnel of defeat.
My sister Kate
Bodies
cornered me
tumbling
by the
over one
refreshment
another to
table,
escape.
her expression still a mix
Maureen
of amusement and
lowered
disbelief.
her gun, pressing
Only
a
you
hand
could
to
mistake a
Callahan's
surprise
cheek.
party for an affair.
"This land is mine
She
now,"
teased,
she said,
refilling her
voice
wine glass.
soft but unyielding.
Most people just
He
pretend
spat.
to be surprised when
"You're
they
just
find
a
out.
woman." Her laugh
Very
was
funny,
cold.
I said,
"And you're just
nudging
a
her
man
with
who
my
forgot
elbow.
what it cost to
You
cross
try
one."
finding your husband's wedding. Ring
battle
abandoned
ended
on
as
the bathroom
abruptly as it
sink
had
and see where
begun.
your mind goes.
Golden Pass
Kate's
lay
smile
silent,
softened.
but for groans of the
Seriously,
wounded
though,
and the
are you
rasp of
okay?
breath sucked from
That must have
heavy
been a
chests,
terrifying
Dot
few
Maureen
hours.
stood tall,
I
chest
considered her
heaving.
question,
Around
watching
her,
Daniel
her
across
people
the room
gathered,
as he
battered
chatted
but
animatedly
triumphant.
with a group of our
Whitaker
friends.
approached, laying a
"I'm
bloodied
better
hand
than
on her
okay," I
shoulder.
admitted.
"You did it,"
It was like
he said quietly.
having the
She
rug pulled
nodded.
out from under me
"For
and
our
then suddenly
future,
finding
in
solid
the
ground.
pass's narrow light,
Again.
the widow's
It
resolve
makes you
shone
appreciate that
brighter
ground
than
even
any
more.
weapon, a testament
Poetic,
that some fires
Kate
could never
remarked.
be snuffed.
But I'm still going to
The
tease you
return
about
trek
this for
from
years
Golden
to come.
Pass to Dustin's
I'd
Creek
expect
was
nothing
one of cautious
less.
triumph.
I laughed.
The valley lay
The
serene
conversation
under the
shifted
midday
as Kate
sun,
updated me on her
stretching
latest
fields and
work
orchards that
project.
bore no memory of the
But I found my
fires.
attention
As
drifting to
Maureen
where
and her
Olivia
band
stood
emerged
alone
from
on
the
the deck,
twisting gorge,
gazing out at the lake.
relief rippled
Something
through the
about her
townsfolk
posture,
who'd waited.
shoulders
Each
slightly
face
hunched,
a portrait of hope
arms wrapped
reclaimed.
around herself
They marched
despite
her
the
into
mild
the town
evening,
square,
suggested
where
she
windows
needed
flung
company.
open like cheering mouths.
"Excuse me,"
Children
I said
ran
to
to see
Kate,
the woman
making
who
my
had
way
faced
outside.
down outlaws and storms.
Olivia didn't turn as I
Her eyes
approached,
wide with
though she must
awe.
have heard the deck door door
Men
slide
and women
open.
alike laid down
I leaned
weapons
against
at
the
her
railing
feet,
beside her,
tears mingling
giving her
with
space
dirt
to
on their
speak
cheeks.
first if she wanted.
Maureen dismounted, her
I'm
frame
having
weary
second
but
thoughts,
unbroken.
she finally said,
Whitaker came
her
beside
voice
her,
barely audible
placing
above the
crippled
lapping of
Callahan
waves
bound
against the
and
shore.
bruised on a wagon.
About the fertility
The
treatments.
outlaws. Eyes flicked to Maureen, flickering
what
with
if I'm
something
being
like
selfish?
grudging respect.
She turned to
Reverend
face me,
Hawley stepped
vulnerability
forward,
evident in her
tears shining
expression.
on his weathered
Choosing
face.
to have a child
He
without
placed
a partner,
hand on her shoulder.
without that built-in
You've
support
walked
system
through
you and
fire
Daniel
and
have.
death, Maureen Marcellus.
I had never seen my
Dustin's Creek
confident,
owes you its
decisive
life.
friend so
She
uncertain.
bowed her head.
We all
live.
stood together.
Being a single
she
parent
said
by
softly.
choice isn't selfish.
I only led
it's
where there
brave.
was need. The
Is it?
Reverend
Or
gestured
is
to Callahan,
it unfair to the
hoisted onto his
child?
feet with 2 deputies.
Her eyes shimmered with
And
unshed
what say
tears.
you, outlaw?
I mean,
Will
look
you
at today.
honor this town's
When
mercy?
you thought Daniel was
Callahan
cheating,
spat a
you
wad
weren't
of
just
tobacco.
devastated for yourself.
His gaze flicked from
You were
his bleeding
devastated for what it
shoulder
meant
to
for
the
your
resolute
future
faces
family,
around.
your plans together.
Him. At
I
last he bowed
reached
his
for her
head.
hand.
I'll ride
Every
away,
family looks
never to
different,
return.
Liv.
No
And any
oath
child would be
needed.
lucky to have
A
you as
cheer
their mother,
rose hot and bright.
with or without a partner
The
in the
tension
picture.
that had strung every nerve
I just keep
snapped,
thinking about
replaced by a tide
the
of
deck
unity.
door slid open
That
again,
evening,
and Eric
as
stepped
lanterns
out.
cast a soft glow across
There you
the
are,
creek's
he
gentle
said,
waters,
with a relieved
Dustin's Creek
smile.
gathered. The
We're
blacksmith
about to cut the
booth
cake.
hammered horseshoes for
Olivia
new beginnings.
quickly wiped her eyes and
Children
plastered on
sat
a
at
smile.
Maureen's feet, listening
Can't
to
miss
her
that,
tell the tale
she
of
said
courage
with forced
beneath a
cheerfulness,
sky freckled with stars.
squeezing my hand
That
once
Whitaker
before
brought her a
following
cup of
Eric
strong
inside.
coffee. They'll
I lingered
remember
for a
this
moment
tale longer
longer,
than any sermon.
making a mental note to
She
continue
sipped,
this conversation
warmth
with her
blossoming
later.
in her chest.
Olivia had been my
They'll
rock
carry
through
this dawn
years
in
of
their
fertility
hearts.
struggles.
Above,
I
owls
intended
called
to
from
be
the
hers
pines.
through whatever path
All
she
was
chose.
quiet. Peace had a
Inside,
heartbeat of its own
Daniel
now,
was waiting
but
with a
in
beautifully
the
decorated
wind
cake
that sighed
ablaze
through the
with candles.
trees, Maureen heard a
As
whisper
everyone sang
yet to
happy
be spoken,
birthday, I
the
found
promise
myself
of a home rebuilt,
overwhelmed
of
with
a child's
gratitude.
first breath under
Just
gentler
hours
skies.
ago, I'd been
And for
convinced my
that,
marriage was
she
over.
would stand guard until
Now
her
I was
last
surrounded
day.
by loved ones,
Weeks passed
wearing
like
the
drifting
emerald necklace
tumbleweeds,
Daniel had
and
given
Dustin's
me,
Creek
looking
rebuilt
forward
under
to the
Maureen's
future we would
watchful
build
eyes.
together.
The barn
Make a
rose
wish,
again, sturdy
Daniel
beams
whispered as the
replacing
song
charred
concluded.
ruins.
I
Neighbors
closed
pitched
my
in
eyes,
hammer and
drew
nail,
a deep breath,
brick and
and
plaster
blew out
united
all
by
35
shared
candles
purpose.
in one go.
In the soft yellow
The
glow
party
of lantern
continued
light,
for another hour
laughter
before
returned
guests
to the
began to
fields where
depart,
sorrow had
each
stalked.
leaving with warm
Maureen
hugs
felt
and
the babies
congratulations
fluttering,
on both my
kicks as she
birthday
worked
and our
beside
fertility
Whitaker at the
news.
blacksmith's forge.
Soon only Kate,
Each strike
her
of the
husband
hammer
Olivia,
rang
and
hope
Eric
into the
remained,
air.
helping with
Whitaker caught
cleanup
her
while
glance
suppressing
and bowed
yawns.
his head respectfully.
You should all
She
head
returned
back,
a smile that
Daniel
held both
suggested,
exhaustion
noting
and triumph.
the time.
One evening,
It's almost
a
midnight
rider
and the drive
appeared
is
on the
pretty
ridge,
dark.
an envoy from Governor
Are
Caldwell's
you sure? Kate
office
asked,
bearing a sealed letter.
glancing around at the
The
remaining
town
party
gathered
debris.
at the saloon's porch.
We can stay and finish
under
cleaning.
the sign reading
Absolutely,
Silver Star,
I assured her.
Maureen and the
The rest
Marshal,
can wait
his
until
star
morning.
shining. Bright
After
on
a
his coat
final
accepted
round of
the
hugs and
envoy.
goodbyes,
The governor's
we
letter
watched their
praised her
headlights
courage,
disappear down the gravel
pardoned
driveway,
any debts incurred,
leaving Daniel and me
granted an
alone in the
official
suddenly
title
quiet
to the
cabin.
land she reclaimed.
Did
The
you
seal
have a good
broke with a
birthday,
crisp crack that
despite
echoed
everything?
in her chest.
He asked,
Land grant
wrapping his
Marcellus
arms
homestead.
around me
A
from
cheer
behind as we
erupted,
stood in the
and
doorway.
Maureen's eyes
The
glistened.
best? I said
She
truthfully.
read the words twice
Though maybe
before
next year we
passing
can
the
skip the
parchment
part
to
where
the
I think you're
Marshal.
leaving me.
He nodded
Deal.
solemnly. Justice.
He kissed the top of my head.
Truly had found her.
It's almost
that
midnight.
Night, the town threw
Ready
a
for your final
celebration.
surprise?
Lanterns drifted
Curiosity
like stars
piqued.
above
I
long
turned in
tables
his arms.
laden with fresh bread,
I thought the
roasted
necklace and
meat,
party
and sweet pies.
were the surprise.
Music
Those
swelled
were just
fiddle
the
and
beginning.
banjo and joyous.
Taking my
Harmony while
hand,
lantern
he
light
led me back
flickered
out
across
onto the
faces
deck.
that glowed with
Close
new
your
beginnings.
eyes.
Maureen
I complied,
joined the dance,
feeling the
her
cool
gown
night
swishing
air
in the
against my
dust.
skin as Daniel
Whitaker
guided me
spun her
further
with
onto the deck.
surprising
The
gentleness,
sounds of the lake
both of
surrounded
them
us.
laughing beneath
Gentle
the open
waves,
sky.
distant loon calls,
She pressed
the
her
rustle
hand
of
to her
leaves in
belly,
the breeze.
feeling the life within
Okay,
stir to the
he
rhythm
said,
of celebration.
positioning me carefully.
Later,
Open them.
she stood at the edge of
I
the
opened
creek,
my eyes to
the
find the
water's
lake
soft
transformed.
murmur reflecting the
Dozens
lantern
of
glow.
paper lanterns floated
Whitaker
on
approached
the water,
quietly,
their
offering
soft
her a
glow creating
simple
a path of light
wooden
from our
box
dock
dot
out into the
inside lay
darkness.
Jonah's pocket
Above,
watch.
the night sky
Its
was
silver
alive with
face
stars,
polished to a mirror
more
sheen.
visible here away from
I
city
found
lights.
it in the barn ruins,
Daniel,
Whitaker said softly.
I breathed.
He'd want
It's
you to have
beautiful.
it. Tears
Look there.
welled as she clasped
He pointed
the watch.
toward the floating lanterns.
Thank you. He placed a
As I
hand over
focused,
hers.
I realized they
child.
weren't randomly arranged.
She nodded.
The
We'll
lanterns
keep time by its
formed
second by
letters
second,
on the dark water.
heartbeat by heartbeat.
forever.
The creek's song carried
The lake where we first
them
fell in
home.
love.
Two
Daniel
survivors
said
bound
softly.
by mercy and defiance.
The place where we
toward the
scattered
dawn
your
of a
father's
life neither
ashes.
had dared to dream.
Where we decided to
the
start
first
trying for
chill
a
of autumn
family.
drifted through Dustin's
now,
Creek, and
where
with
we
it
begin a
came
new
the promise
chapter.
of harvest.
Tears blurred my
Maureen
vision
stood
as the
among the
meaning of
stalks
his
of
gesture
golden
sank
wheat,
in.
the wind whispering
Daniel
through the
had always
field like a
understood how
chorus of
special this
gratitude.
place was to me.
Neighbors
How
labored
connected
around
I
her.
felt to the memories we'd
Stacks of
created
grain
here.
bound and
How
drying
did you
for the
manage
coming
this without
winter.
me
Her
noticing?
belly had grown full,
Eric and I set them
rounding
up
her
while you were
silhouette
talking with
like
Olivia.
the moon over the creek.
They're on timers,
Whitaker joined
set
her,
to light up at
leading
exactly
the gray mare
midnight.
and 2 plow
As if
horses
on
that had been
cue,
gifted
my
for her
phone chimed
homestead.
the midnight hour.
You
My birthday
ever
was
think
officially
we'd see
over,
this piece?
but something new was
He asked,
beginning.
voice soft against
I
rustling
know today
wheat.
didn't go
She
as planned,
paused, hand on
Daniel
her side.
continued.
Some
taking
days I
both my
still
hands
wake
in
half
his.
expecting the smoke.
But I meant what I
He
said
shook
earlier.
his head, brushing
No
a
more
strand
secrets
of hair
between
from her
us,
face.
even for surprises.
But it never comes.
Full transparency
She
from now
smiled,
on.
leaning into his
Full transparency.
because
I
we
agreed.
stand guard together.
He hesitated,
That evening,
then reached into his
a
pocket.
rider arrived bearing a telegram
Which is
news
why
from
there's
town
something else I
council.
need to tell you.
The county had approved
Something I've been
repairs
saving
for the
right
weary chapel
moment.
on the hill.
My heart
And the
skipped as he
midwife
pulled
was
out an
heading west to
envelope.
deliver her first child
What is it?
safely. The town
The
gathered
complete
once more
results from
beneath
Dr.
lantern
Chen.
glow, cheering
He
as
handed me the
Maureen read the
envelope.
bulletins aloud.
I only told you the
Laughter
good part,
wove through the
that
night
the
air,
treatment worked,
a tapestry
that
of
there
renewed faith.
are no more
Later,
barriers.
as candles
But there's more.
burned low,
My
she
hands
sank
trembled
into the
slightly
rocking
as I
chair
opened the
Jonah had
envelope,
carved years
pulling
ago.
out the medical report
Whitaker
inside.
settled at her feet,
I scanned the document,
polishing the pocket
medical
watch by its
terminology
silver
jumping out at
chain.
me,
She's
until I
due
reached a
soon.
highlighted
He
section
murmured.
halfway
She
down the
nodded,
page.
eyes distant.
My breath
Any
caught.
moment now.
Is
A
this...
hush fell as a distant cry
this
rent
saying
the
what I
evening
think it's
air
saying?
horse hooves approaching
Daniel
fast.
nodded,
Maureen
his expression a mix of
and
excitement
Whitaker exchanged
and
tense
apprehension.
glances before he rose.
The hormonal
rifle in
treatment
hand,
was more
heading
effective than
toward the porch.
anticipated. Dr.
Moments
Chen
later,
says the
he
chances of
returned,
multiple embryos
face pale in the
successfully
lantern
implanting
light.
has increased
Deliverance,
significantly.
he whispered Dot
Multiple,
behind him.
I
The
repeated,
midwife stood
the word
clutching a
feeling
blanket
foreign on
wrapped
my
bundle.
tongue.
Candles
As
flickered
in,
as she lifted the cloth to
twins
reveal
are
a
a strong
newborn's
possibility,
pink face,
he
smaller
confirmed.
than the stars
Maybe
that
even
shone
triplets.
above. Maureen's
The
breath
world
caught.
seemed to tilt slightly
Whitaker
as I
knelt
processed
beside
this new
her,
information.
and she reached out,
After
touching the
years
tiny
of trying
hand
for
that
just
curled
one
around her
baby,
finger.
the prospect
All
of
of this,
multiples was
she
overwhelming.
whispered to the child,
I wanted
was
to
for
tell you
you.
right away,
In the hush
Daniel
of that
continued,
sacred moment,
watching my
the
reaction
valley
carefully.
exhaled once more.
But I didn't want to overshadow
Victory
your
had
birthday with what might be
come
stressful
full
news.
circle, from ashes to wheat,
Stressful?
from fire to lullaby.
I looked up
and in
from
the
the
cradle's
report,
soft glow.
a startled laugh
Maureen
escaping
found
me.
the promise of a tomorrow
Daniel,
sown in love's
this
steadfast
is
courage.
incredible.
The day after her daughter's birth,
You're not overwhelmed?
Maureen led a quiet
Of course
ceremony
I'm
at the
overwhelmed,
rebuilt chapel
I
on the
admitted.
hill.
But in
Neighbors
the best
gathered
possible
beneath
way.
whitewashed walls,
We've wanted
bathed
this for
in
so
morning
long.
light.
One baby,
Reverend Halle
two babies,
offered a blessing
however
for the
many we're
newborn.
blessed with.
Victorine Marcellus,
Relief
her
washed over his
name
features
carried
as he
on
pulled
soft
me into
hymns
an
and tearful
embrace.
prayers.
Against his
Afterwards,
chest, I added,
Maureen cradled Victorine
though we might
on the
need a
porch
bigger
as
house.
the wind played through the pines.
He chuckled, the
Whitaker
sound
placed
rumbling
the
through
pocket
him.
watch in her hand.
One step at a
Her
time.
first keepsake.
We
he
stood
said.
there on the deck,
She nodded,
holding
brushing
each other
Victorine's
beneath the
cheek.
star-scattered
Time's
sky.
gift.
The glowing
Days
lanterns
grew
casting
crisp,
dancing
winter's
reflections
breath
on
at
the
the valley's
water.
edges.
After the
Dustin's
emotional
Creek
turbulence
settled
of the
into its
day,
newfound
from
calm.
despair to
Fields
relief
cleared
to
for snow,
celebration,
horses stabled.
this quiet moment
Warmly,
felt like the
one
true
twilight,
gift.
Maureen stood
Happy
at the barn's
birthday,
threshold.
Megan, Daniel
Victorine
whispered.
swaddled in her arms,
And happy new
watching
beginning,
Whitaker
I
repair
replied,
fence rails.
sealing the moment
The
with a
gray
kiss
Maureen
as
neighed
the floating
softly,
lanterns
her breath
continued to
drifting
spell
in
out our
misty
future
puffs.
on the dark water,
Tomorrow,
our future on the
Whitaker
dark water,
said,
our future.
looking up,
2 weeks after
I
my
ride to
birthday,
visit old
life had
friends
settled
checking
into
in
a
on the
strange
past.
new normal.
You'll be all right?
Daniel and I had
She
returned to
paused,
the city,
heart tightening,
our daily
with
routines
Victorine
resuming with one
always.
significant
He
difference. I
bent
now
to kiss
attended
her
fertility
forehead,
clinic
then I'll
appointments
return
3 times a
quickly.
week,
At
preparing
dawn,
my
he
body for
rode
the
out,
next phase of
Victorine
treatment.
cooing in her cradle
The possibility
as
of
Maureen watched
multiple
from the porch
babies loomed
resolute
in our
and serene.
conversations,
Days
both
passed
thrilling
without
and
word.
terrifying.
Maureen's vigil
We should
wavered
start looking
only
at bigger
once when
apartments,
she glimpsed
Daniel remarked one
figures
evening as we
atop the
sat on our
ridged
living room
silhouettes
couch
against the
reviewing
pale
real
sky.
estate listings.
She gripped the
If we're
rifle Jonah had crafted
potentially
and
having
prepared
twins
Dot
or
then.
triplets,
A single rider
this two-bedroom
thundered
isn't
down,
going to cut
the
it.
gray moire carrying
Let's not get ahead of
Whitaker.
ourselves,
Head hung low,
I cautioned,
reins loose.
though I'd been
Maureen
thinking the
rushed
same
to him,
thing.
heart pounding.
We don't even know if the
He slid
implantation
from the
will be
saddle,
successful yet.
voice soft.
Daniel set
They've
aside his
come.
laptop to take my
Back.
hand.
Her blood ran
I know,
cold. From
But
Golden
Dr. Chen
Pass.
seemed very
He shook his
optimistic
head.
at yesterday's appointment.
Worse. Governor
had been.
Caldwell's orders.
My
an
hormone
inspection.
levels were ideal,
They want
and
to see if
everything
this town
was
can survive
progressing
without threat,
perfectly.
and if not,
The embryo
they take the
transfer was
land for
scheduled for next
railroads.
week, and then would come
Silence
the
wrapped
anxious
around her
2-week
like a
wait to
noose.
see if pregnancy occurred.
Dustin's Creek, her home.
I just don't want to jinx
faced new
anything,
tyranny.
I
Maureen
admitted.
held Victorine
We've
close,
been disappointed
eyes
too many
steeled.
times.
Then
Fair. Enough,
we stand
Daniel
again
agreed.
for every heartbeat
But maybe
here.
we could just
And
casually
in
browse.
that moment,
No
beneath
commitments.
the barn's budding promise of
I was about to
spring,
respond when
she
my
knew
phone
her
buzzed
vigil
with
was
an
eternal
incoming call.
As a mother,
Checking
a
the
Marshal's
screen,
ally,
I was
and
surprised
the
to see repeat
sentinel
Chloe
of the
Parker's
town that
name.
refused to fade.
We'd exchanged numbers after the lake house
inspector's carriage
incident.
rattled up
But
Main
I hadn't
Street,
expected to
its
hear from her
polished
again.
wheels an omen of
It's
distant
Chloe,
power.
I told Daniel,
Dustin's
answering the
Creek
call.
gathered as one beneath
Hello?
frosted eaves men
Megan?
in coats braced tight.
Her voice
women
sounded
clutching
strange.
shawls.
I'm
and
sorry to bother
Victorine
you,
wrapped snug
but
in
I didn't know
Maureen's
who else to
arms.
call.
The
I
carriage
sat up
door
straighter,
opened with
concerned
regal
by her
finality,
tone.
and out
What's
stepped
wrong?
Colonel
Are you
Abram
okay?
Kells. Heir of
Not
Governor
really.
Caldwell's will.
She gave a hollow
He swept
laugh.
his gaze along the town's
I'm at
patched
Lakeside
roofs and
Hospital.
new fences.
There's
face
been an
unreadable.
accident.
His
My
aide,
stomach dropped.
clipboard in hand,
What happened?
took notes.
Jason
On
was
every
driving with
cracked
Amber.
board and
The
blooming
names of her
flower.
ex-fiancé and
Maureen
former maid of
approached,
honor sent a
chin
jolt
high,
of recognition
baby on
through
hip.
me.
Colonel, she
They were
said,
hit by a
voice
drunk
calm
driver on
steel.
Highway 16.
Welcome to Dustin's Creek.
It's pretty
he
bad.
inclined his head.
Oh my God,
Mrs.
Chloe, I'm
Marcellus,
so sorry.
I've heard much
I
your
gestured to
defense, your
Daniel,
birth.
mouthing
He gestured
hospital
to
to explain
Victorine.
my alarmed
Impressive.
expression.
She steadied
But
herself.
why are you there?
We defend what we
After
build,
what they
sir.
did,
He smiled
that's the
thinly.
thing, she said,
That's exactly why
her voice
I'm here.
cracking slightly.
The railhead will pass through these
Jason
hills.
listed me as his
We
emergency
require
contact
free passage
and apparently
or
never
compensation.
changed it
Murmurs
after
rippled through
everything.
the Crowdland sale
The
or
hospital
forced
called me.
removal.
And when I
Whitaker
got here,
stepped forward.
I found out I'm
This
still his
land's
medical
granted
proxy.
to Maureen Marcellus.
That's
Are
a
you
lot to deal
disputing?
with. I
The governor's
acknowledged,
own decree.
trying to understand
Kells'
why she was
eyes
calling me
narrowed.
specifically.
He tapped the
The
clipboard.
doctors need decisions
Declarations
made,
change.
she continued,
The rail's
about his
interest
care,
supersedes
and
local
I don't know what
claims.
to do.
It's in the country's
We were together
best
for
interest.
4 years, Megan.
Maureen's grip tightened
Despite
on
how it
Victorine.
ended, I can't just...
The country you speak for
You can't
is
just
my
abandon
daughter's.
him.
Home,
I finished for her,
Kells' aide
understanding
whispered. The colonel
dawning.
nodded. Then
But
a
you also don't
compromise.
want to face this
Move
alone.
the route 2 miles south.
Exactly.
We built a spur to your
Relief
town's
colored her
main
tone.
thoroughfare.
Would
Silence. 2 miles south
I
meant
know
a
this is
tunnel
a
through
huge
unforgiving
imposition,
rock and years
but would you
of
mind coming to the hospital?
delay.
Just for moral
Dustin's Creek
support?
would starve or be
I
held
don't have
hostage.
many friends in the city,
Maureen
and
exhaled
after
slowly.
canceling the
Or,
wedding,
she said
most of our
softly,
mutual friends
we
chose
stand
sides.
by our land.
I glanced
Kells'
at Daniel,
smile turned
who was
cold.
watching me with
Then we
concern,
bulldoze a path.
and made a split-second
The threat
decision.
hung like storm
Of course.
clouds.
Text me the
Townsfolk
details.
shared glances.
I'll be there as soon as I can.
Resolve hardening in every
After
eye.
hanging up,
Maureen
I quickly
held
explained the
Victorine
situation
close,
to
voice
Daniel.
clear.
That's
If you break this land,
unexpected,
you break our
he
spirit.
said, looking
Kells
confused.
surveyed the crowd.
Why would she
He
call
tapped his
you of
boots
all
on
people?
the dusty street.
I think I might
leave
be
with
the
your
only
answer at dusk.
person who
He
witnessed what
returned to his
happened without
carriage,
being
wheels
emotionally
rolling
invested
like
in
judge's
either
gavel
side.
dot as the
I
carriage
reasoned,
vanished.
already gathering
Dustin's
my purse and
Creek
jacket.
exhaled, then turned
Plus,
to Maureen.
finding out
She
about
placed
Jason and
Victorine in
Amber's
Whitaker's
affair
arms.
happened at the
They
same
test
time
our
I
will.
discovered you weren't
We answer
actually
with ours.
leaving me.
Whitaker
There's a weird
nodded,
connection
eyes
there.
dark with determination.
Daniel nodded
Through
slowly.
the gathering dusk, the
Do you
town
want me to come
prepared
with
for
you?
a new stand.
No,
Not
I think
against
it's better if
outlaws
it's
or
just me.
gangs, but against empire
I kissed him
itself.
goodbye.
The real
Don't
fight
wait
for
up.
their home
This
had
might
only
take a
begun.
while.
Under a paling
The hospital
sky,
was a 30-minute
Dustin's
drive
Creek
across the
gathered
city.
At the edge of the field
As
where
I
the
navigated
proposed
evening
rail line
traffic,
was marked
I
with
reflected
red
on how
stakes.
quickly life could
Men
change.
with measuring
From
chains, engineers
planning a
in
wedding
starched
to making
collars
medical
paced the
decisions for an
land,
ex-fiancé
eyes
in
cold
just
with
2 weeks.
calculation.
It put my own
Women
birthday
watched.
crisis into perspective.
From doorways,
I
children
found Chloe
tailed
in the
their
surgical
skirts.
waiting room,
Adrian
looking smaller
Caldwell's
than I
lieutenant,
remembered in an
Colonel
oversized
Kells'
sweater,
second in command,
her dark hair pulled back in a
supervised the
messy
work.
ponytail.
Maureen stood at
When she
Whitaker's
spotted
side,
me,
Victorine
relief
asleep
washed over
against
her
shoulder.
exhausted
She
features.
surveyed the land, rolling
Thank you for
fields
coming,
that yielded grain,
she said as I
orchards
sat beside
heavy
her.
with fruit. The
I know
chapel
it's
on the hill
strange.
that had seen both
How are
tears
they
and
doing?
laughter.
I
The
asked
lieutenant
gently.
approached, clipboard
Amber's
in
in
hand.
stable condition.
Ma'am,
Broken
the
arm,
engineers need clear
concussion,
right-of-way.
some internal
Best
bruising.
if you move your
Her voice
livestock
was
in structures
detached,
beyond
clinical.
those stakes. She squared
Jason's
her
still in
shoulders.
surgery. His
Those stakes
injuries are
mark
more
my home,
severe.
sir.
Collapsed
The lieutenant
lung,
frowned.
ruptured spleen,
Orders are
head
orders.
trauma. They're
the
not
rail
sure
must
if...
proceed by sunrise.
She trailed off,
Maureen
unable to
met his
finish the
gaze.
thought. I
Then,
placed my hand over hers.
I won't stand aside.
I'm
He
so...
cleared his throat.
Sorry, Chloe.
I'll report back.
The thing is,
He spoke into
she
his pocket
continued,
watch,
staring at the
voice low
institutional
dot as he
tile floor.
retreated.
I'm still
Townsfolk
so
fused
angry
into
with
action.
him. Furious,
Fences removed
actually.
by hand.
But I don't
Barns
want him to
unlatched for
die.
relocation.
Of course
Horses
not,
led to
I
alternate
agreed.
pastures.
Those feelings can
Each
exist
citizen
simultaneously.
contributed muscle and
You can
resolve.
be angry with someone and
Whitaker
still care
rallied.
about what happens to them.
Them,
The
barking
doctors
orders
need
like
to
a
know about
veteran
continuing
sergeant,
aggressive
but no structure
treatment
could
if
move
things
the
go
earth
south.
itself.
She
The
finally
red
looked at
stakes
me,
dug
her
into
eyes
fields,
red-rimmed.
severing
I'm
root
still
and soil.
legally authorized
That
to make
night by
those
lantern
decisions,
light,
at least
Maureen
until
and
our
Whitaker
would-have-been
addressed the
wedding
town
date when the
assembled in the
proxy
chapel.
expires.
She
But how do I
laid
know
her
what's
hand
right?
over the map spread on the
It was
altar's
an
plinth.
impossible question,
They'll chop through our
one I
harvest,
couldn't answer
our
for
history.
her.
We must
What
stop
would
them
Jason
by
want?
rail or by law.
Chloe.
Booth, the
Consider considered
blacksmith
this,
slammed his
twisting
fist
the
into
empty
his
ring
palm.
finger on her left hand.
I say we dismantle their rails
He
by
always
dawn.
said he wouldn't want to be kept
Others
alive by
nodded,
machines if there was
fists
no
raised
hope.
in fierce solidarity.
But he's only 36.
Yet, in the hush
There
that
might be
followed,
hope, right?
Maureen raised her
Before I could
hand for
respond,
silence.
a surgeon in
A
blue,
revolt against our
Scrubs
government
approached.
risks more than the
Ms.
rail.
Parker,
We'll
we've
have
completed the
soldiers,
first phase
not
of surgery.
surveyors,
First
at
phase
our
of
doors.
surgery. Chloe
A
stood,
murmur of
gripping
fear
my hand
washed
for
through
support.
the pews.
How is
Maureen's gaze
he?
roamed
We've
over the
stabilized the
faces
lung
she'd
and removed
saved.
the damaged
Instead,
portion of the spleen,
she
the
continued,
surgeon
"We
explained.
fight with word
But the head
and
trauma
witness.
is concerning.
We
There's
petition the
significant
governor,
swelling in the brain.
unite
We're
neighboring
inducing
towns.
a coma
We
to
show
give it
them
time
a
to heal.
community too fierce
And
to
his
vanish."
prognosis?
Her resolve
Chloe's voice
ignited
was
their
barely
hope.
audible.
Whitaker stepped
next
forward,
24 hours are
raising
critical,
Victorine in a
The
protective
surgeon
cradle
said carefully.
for her future.
We need your consent for
They
additional
chanted,
procedures
"For
if necessary.
her future."
Chloe signed the forms with
And
a
in
shaking
that hallowed
hand.
hall,
The surgeon's
they vowed to
explanations
defend
washing
their
over
hearth,
her.
not with gunpowder,
When he left, she turned
but
to me
with
with hollow
unity
eyes.
pressing against the iron
I should
teeth
call
of
his
progress.
parents. They live in Arizona.
Winter's breath
They should
settled
be
over
here.
Dustin's Creek
That's
in
a good
crystalline
idea.
frost.
I agreed.
The rail stakes standing
Is
like tombstones
there anyone else
across
who
the
should know?
fields. Maureen
His brother.
adjusted Victorine in her
And
arms and led a delegation
I
to the
suppose
post road,
Amber's
where
family,
a rickety
though I
stage
don't have
awaited
their
downtown.
contact information.
Representatives,
We spent the
farmers,
next hour making
shopkeepers,
calls,
even the
arranging
blacksmith
flights for
booth stood
Jason's
beside
parents,
her.
and providing
Whitaker
information to
unfolded her
various
petition.
family
Hundreds
members.
of signatures
Throughout it
demanding
all,
rerouting the
Chloe
railroad,
remained remarkably
compensation
composed,
for seized
though I
land,
could see the
and
toll it was
recognition of
taking
the
on her.
community's sovereignty.
When we
They
finally had a
presented it to
moment
the
of
county
quiet,
seat's
I
magistrate,
ventured a
whose
question that had been
expression
bothering
flickered
me.
between disdain
Chloe,
and mild surprise.
why did you come?
Your petition's noted,
After what he
the
did to
magistrate
you,
intoned,
many people would
tapping
have
his
told the
fish-skin
hospital to
quill.
contact someone else.
But the railroad's interest
She was
is
silent for
paramount.
so long I thought she might not
Directives
answer.
come from the governor himself.
Because I
Maureen
know what
stepped
it's like to
forward,
be alone in
voice
crisis.
ringing.
She
Clear.
picked at a loose thread on her
Governor
sweater.
Caldwell spared no mercy
3 years
when law
ago,
suited
I was
his
in a car
cause,
accident.
but saved no
Not as
prayers
serious
for
as
a
this,
widow
but bad
defending her
enough.
child.
Jason
A
was
hush
traveling for
fell.
work, and I had
The
no
magistrate's
family
quill
nearby.
trembled.
A stranger
I will
stayed with
forward
me in
your
the
petition.
ER until my
You
friend
have
could
our
arrive.
consideration.
I never forgot that
left.
kindness.
Without ceremony,
answer
hearts
silenced
heavy,
me.
yet unbroken.
Despite
Snow
the betrayal
blanketed
she'd
the stakes
experienced,
overnight,
despite the
muting their
public
menace, but not
humiliation
their
of
intent.
canceling a wedding days before
Inside
the
the
event,
Silver Star Saloon,
she chose compassion
Maureen
over
warmed her
resentment
hands
when
by
it
the
mattered
fire,
most.
Whitaker beside her.
You're a good person,
Victorine
Chloe
asleep.
Parker, I said
Consideration
finally.
means
She shook her
time,
head.
he said softly down.
I'm not
She
sure about
nodded.
that.
Time
But I'm
we don't
trying to be
have.
the person
A
I'd
knock
want to
sounded at the
encounter if
door.
our positions were
Deputy
reversed.
McAllister returned from the
That's
city,
the
stepped
definition
in.
of a good person
His
in my
eyes,
book.
once weary,
A
burned
nurse
bright. The governor's
appeared to
response
inform us that we
arrived,
could see
he
Jason
announced,
briefly.
handing Maureen a
Chloe
dispatch.
hesitated, then
He's
asked if I would come with
delayed
her.
construction for 60
I agreed,
days and
following her
ordered an
down the
inquiry.
sterile hallway to the
Your
ICU.
community has the right to testify.
Nothing prepares you for
A
seeing
cheer
someone in a
erupted,
medically induced
lanterns
coma.
flickering in joyous haste.
Jason lay
Maureen
unnaturally
unfolded
still,
the parchment,
tubes and
studying
wires
its
connecting
words.
him to various
Whitaker
machines,
breathed beside
his
her.
face swollen
We
and
buy
bruised
time.
almost beyond
She
recognition.
pressed her palm against the paper.
Beside me,
Time
Chloe
to save
drew
our
in a
home.
sharp breath.
Outside, snow
I'll give you a
continued to
moment,
fall, a promise
I
of
whispered,
renewal.
stepping
And in
back
the
toward
warmth
the door.
of the saloon, a fractured town stitched
said
itself
quickly.
whole.
Please
With
stay.
hope and perseverance,
She approached
preparing
the bed
to face
cautiously,
the halls of power
as if afraid
with the
to
same
disturb the
unwavering
equipment.
spirit that had
After a
defended
moment's
fields
hesitation,
and barns.
she reached out to touch
The
Jason's
inquiry
hand,
convened at the
the
county
one without the
courthouse,
IV line.
its grand columns
We had
looming
everything
over a tired
planned,
town.
she said softly,
Inside,
not
Dustin's
looking at me.
Creek's delegation,
The honeymoon in
Maureen,
Bali, the house
Reverend
we were
Hawley,
buying, the
Deputy
5-year plan to start a
McAllister,
family
and
once we were
Whitaker
established.
took witness seats.
She withdrew her hand.
Opposite them sat the
Now I don't
railroad's
even know
legal
if he'll wake
counsel,
up, and
slick
I'm
in
not
black
sure how I
coats.
feel about any
Their
of it.
ledger books stacked
You
like
don't have to
sentinels.
know
Judge
right
Pembroke
now,
rapped his
I
gavel.
told her.
This
You just have
hearing
to
shall
be here,
determine whether
making the best
rail may
decisions you
proceed
can
through
with the
Dustin's
information
Creek.
available.
Counsel,
The feelings will sort
you
themselves
may
out.
present your case. The
We stayed for
railroad
only a
lawyer
few
rose,
minutes before the
voice
nurse
smooth
indicated
as
it was
oil.
time to leave.
Your Honor,
In the hallway,
nation
Chloe
demands
suddenly stopped
progress.
and turned to me.
Our engineers
Amber's
present
room is
surveys
down there,
showing minimal
she said,
disruption, 60
nodding toward
stakes
another
to be
corridor.
removed.
I should
New
check on
fences
her
erected
too,
at
shouldn't
our
I?
expense.
That's what a good
This
person
is
would
fair
do.
compensation.
The question
Reverend
wasn't really
Hawley leaned
directed at me,
forward.
but I answered anyway.
What of the Marcellus homestead?
Only if you feel
the
ready for
birthplace of
that.
the child whose future
Being a
you
good
threaten?
person doesn't mean
The
putting
lawyer
yourself through
dismissed him with a
unnecessary
polite
pain.
bow. They may
Chloe
rebuild.
considered this,
We offer
then
financial
squared her
support.
shoulders.
Maureen's
I want to see her.
pulse thrummed like war
Unlike
drums
Jason,
as she stood.
Amber was conscious,
The room fell
though
silent.
clearly medicated.
She laid a single
When she saw Chloe
soot-smudged
in the
ledger on
doorway,
the clerk's desk.
her eyes
The
widened with
Marcellus
fear
farm
and
records,
shame.
dated
You
and
can
paid
wait
in
outside
full.
if you want,
Your Honor,
Chloe told
me.
This land was won from
Are you
Ashley
sure?
by my husband and me.
She nodded.
These
I need
fields
to do
feed
this part
countless
alone.
families.
I waited in the
fragment,
hall,
it is to
unable to
sever
hear their conversation,
our lifeblood.
but watching through the
She
window as
paused,
Chloe
voice softening
spoke
as she
briefly
pulled
to her former
Victorine
friend.
from Whitaker's arms
The exchange
and
lasted
cradled
only
her
a few
before the
minutes
bench.
before Chloe emerged.
This child was
her
born
expression
under those fields'
unreadable.
promise.
Did you get what you
uproot her
needed?
cradle for
I
profit's
asked
rails?
as we walked back to the
A
waiting
hush
area.
swept the gallery.
I think so.
Heartfelt as prayer.
She didn't
Deputy
elaborate,
McAllister added.
and I didn't
We
press.
ask not to halt progress,
Jason's parents
but to
would
protect
arrive
the community's
early
soul.
the next morning.
Let the rail bypass
After making
our
sure
valley
Chloe
by
had
2
everything
miles,
she needed,
preserving
a place
homes
to stay,
and history.
transportation,
The judge
food,
leaned back,
I prepared to
steepling.
leave.
His fingers,
Thank you, she said as
compelling.
we stood in the
Counsel
hospital
for the
parking lot.
railroad.
For
Their
coming,
lawyer
for
shuffled
staying,
papers,
for not
uneasy
judging me.
now. Judge
There's
Pembroke
nothing
tapped
to
his
judge,
gavel.
I assured her.
This court finds in
What
favor
you
of
did tonight
Dustin's
took
Creek.
incredible
The
strength.
railroad shall reroute
She
the
shook her
main line
head.
2 miles south,
It still
with the
hurts so
company
much.
providing a spur
Seeing
and station
them,
house as
thinking
proposed.
about what they did,
Counsel,
but somehow,
issue your orders.
being here, making
Gasps
these
of relief
decisions,
filled the courtroom.
it's helping
like
me let go.
spring thunder.
Does that make sense?
Maureen sank into
Perfect
her chair.
sense,
Tears
I replied,
of triumph shining
thinking
in her
of my
eyes.
own journey on my birthday.
Whitaker squeezed her
How
hand.
the fear of losing
Prayer
Daniel
answered in paper decree.
had ultimately led to a
Outside,
deeper
the
appreciation
sun
for what
broke
we
through
had.
steel-gray
Different
clouds,
circumstances,
scattering
but
diamonds
similar
across
lessons.
melting snow. Dustin's Creek,
As I
breath
drove
free
home,
at last.
I found myself
Victory
reflecting
etched in
on the
hearts
strange
and on the
connection that
legal
had
scroll,
formed between Chloe and me.
Testament that
A
resolve and
misunderstanding
compassion
had brought
could
us
bend
together
even
initially,
iron tracks.
but something deeper had
Spring
developed.
arrived in a flourish
A
of green,
recognition
and
of
Dustin's
shared
Creek
humanity
blossomed
in
under
difficult
renewal.
moments.
The railroad
Daniel was waiting up
surveyors,
despite
led by
my
a
earlier
derisive
instruction,
foreman, eyed the
relief
southern
washing
route
over his
warily.
face when I walked
But
through
the
the door.
valley's farmers, once wary
How did
and
it go?
hardened, now banded
He asked,
together
pulling me into
to
a
guide
hug.
the engineers.
Intense,
Maureen
I
marched
admitted,
alongside
sinking
Whitaker and
onto the
Reverend
couch
Hawley,
beside him.
showing them the
Jason's
gaps in the
condition is
land
serious.
where the spur
Chloe
would
handled
rise.
it with incredible
They
grace.
marked curves around orchards
And how are
bends
you?
through gentle meadows so
His
the tracks
concern
would
was
honor,
evident.
rather than
This can't have
sever
been easy,
the fields.
especially with
Whitney,
everything we've
the
got going on.
blacksmith's apprentice,
I
hammered
thought about the
spikes at
embryo transfer
demonstration,
scheduled for
a gesture
next
of cooperation.
week. The
Not
possibility of
capitulation.
multiples.
In the evenings,
The life-changing journey
DP
we were
followed by
embarking on.
families who'd lost
Compared
barns
to what
and
Chloe
fields
was
in past
facing,
storms,
making
now
life or
shared
death
meals
decisions
at the
for the man who had
saloons.
betrayed her.
Long
Our
tables,
challenges felt
laughter
manageable.
wove through the
Even
chords
blessed.
of a fiddle.
I'm
Children
good,
chased
I said,
lanterns along
meaning
the
it.
creek's banks.
Better
Their
than
joy
good,
bright
actually.
as fireflies
Being
out
there
one
tonight,
night.
it
As
put
fireflies
things
danced in the
in
twilight,
perspective.
Whitaker found
Daniel
Maureen
nodded,
rocking Victorine on
understanding
the
without
porch.
needing further
She
explanation.
hummed a lullaby Jonah had
Life
sung.
can change in an
He
instant.
stood quietly until she looked
Which
up.
is why we shouldn't wait
They
to start
laying
apartment
ties
hunting,
tomorrow, he
I
said.
added,
She
surprising
nodded,
myself
looking
with
toward
the
the ridge
decision.
for her first footsteps.
I don't want to jinx anything,
He kissed her
but I also
forehead.
don't want to waste time
We
being
built
afraid
this
of
town
disappointment.
twice once.
His eyes lit
With
up.
gun smoke,
Really?
once with hope. She
Really?
smiled.
I curled
Born
into his
from
side,
fire and
suddenly
flourished with
exhausted,
faith.
but content.
Behind them,
Let's
the
embrace
whistle
all
of
the
a distant
possibilities,
locomotive
scary as
heralded
they
the first test
might
run
be.
on the spur-proof.
As
That
Daniel
progress
held me,
and compassion
I thought
could
again
ride
of
the
Chloe
rails
standing
together,
beside
and
Jason's
as
hospital
steel
bed,
wheels sang against
confronting
iron
a future
tracks,
nothing like the one
Dustin's
she'd
Creek
planned.
found its place in the
Her courage in the face
world
of that
song,
uncertainty
a harmony
was a
shaped by a
powerful
widow's
reminder.
courage, a town's
None of us
unity,
know what
and a
tomorrow
mother's
holds,
unwavering
but we
love.
can choose how we face it.
Summer's heat
with
rippled
fear
across
or
fields
with
of
hope,
wheat,
with
now
resentment
golden and full,
or with grace.
as the new rail spur
I was
wound
choosing
like
hope.
a silver serpent through
And
Dustin's
after witnessing
Creek.
Chloe's
Locomotives
strength
hissed promises
tonight,
of commerce,
I was more certain
and
than ever
townspeople
that it was
lined
the
the
right choice,
platform for
ever
the
that it was the
inaugural
right
run.
choice. I know,
Cheering as the
he covered
engine's
my
bell
hand with
tolled
his.
dot at the front.
But whatever
Maureen
happens,
held
we face
Victorine
it
high,
together.
waving a daughter's
My phone
first
buzzed
bonnet.
with a text message.
Whitaker stood beside
Expecting
her,
Olivia,
pride
I
shining
was
in his
surprised to see
eyes.
Chloe's name on the
train
screen.
chugged forward.
Jason
Clearing
woke up
gaps
this
between
morning.
carriages where benches
Doctors are cautiously
bore the
optimistic.
names of families
Thought
who
you'd want to
defended the
know.
land. A
Good
wreath
news
of
about Jason,
wildflowers
I
adorned
told
the
Daniel,
engine's
showing
grill,
him the
a
message.
living tribute to
In
resilience.
the week since
got
the
after
accident,
cheers.
I'd been checking
Life
in with
returned
Chloe
to its steady
regularly,
hum.
offering support
Markets
as she
thrived.
navigated the complex
New
situation
settlers
with her
arrived,
ex-fiancé.
enticed by fertile soil
That's a
and
relief,
welcoming arms.
Daniel said.
The blacksmith's
Are you going
forge
to visit them again?
rang with
I had
fresh
gone to
orders,
the hospital
and the chapel's
twice
bells
more
pealed
since
Sunday
that first
mornings.
night.
One
Once
evening,
to meet Jason's
Maureen
parents,
walked the
who were
ridgeline where the
quietly
world's
grateful for
edge met
Chloe's
the
presence
sky.
despite the canceled wedding.
Victorine toddled
And
beside
again when
her,
Amber was
laughter
discharged,
sparkling in the dusk.
needing a ride since
Whitaker
her family
followed
lived out
at
of
a
state.
respectful distance, rifle
Maybe
unused,
tomorrow,
spirit
I
at
decided.
rest.
Today,
She knelt,
I just want to go
lifting her
home
daughter
and
to place a
rest.
small wildflower
The
in her
next
hair.
2 weeks stretched into what
Remember
felt
this,
like an
she
eternity.
whispered.
I returned
Voice
to work,
so soft it
trying to
mingled with
focus
the
on
wind.
normal activities
This
while
land stands
hyper-aware of
because
every
we stood
twinge
for
and
it.
sensation in my
Victorine babbled
body.
in delight. The
Was
future's
that cramp
promise unfurling in her
implantation
bright
or
eyes
just
dotting
digestive
Dustin's
discomfort?
Creek. Scars
Was my
remained
fatigue
bullet
pregnancy
holes,
or
patched in the
anxiety?
saloons.
Every day was a new
Walls,
exercise
graves
in
beneath the
restraint.
oaks, and the
stopping
faint scent
myself
of
from
smoke
taking
on
an
old
early home
timbers.
pregnancy test
Yet,
that might
from
give
those
false
ashes
results.
rose a community tempered
Daniel
by trials.
was my
As
rock,
the sun dipped below
distracting
the
me with
horizon,
apartment
painting the
viewings,
sky
cooking
in
special
ribbons
meals,
of rose and gold.
and never once betraying
Maureen
his own
rose,
anxiety,
wrapping
though I knew he
Victorine
felt it
in
too.
her arms. She
10
faced
days
the
into
town
the wait,
below,
Olivia
fields
called with her
waving
own
in the
news.
wind, lanterns
I'm officially on the
flickering
schedule,
awake,
she
and the
announced.
rail spur
Donor
glinting.
selected, treatment
Together,
protocol
they
approved.
watched the twilight
I start
settle,
hormones next
a testament
month.
that true victory comes not by
That's
destroying,
fantastic, Liv.
but by building.
Have you told anyone
homes,
else?
Hearts,
Just
and a
my
legacy
parents.
to carry forward.
My mom is thrilled.
Dustin's
She's been
Creek
desperate
slept
for
beneath a
grandchildren.
blanket
My
of
dad's taking a
stars,
bit longer
safe
to
in the
adjust to the
hands of the
idea, but
widow
he'll
and her
come
daughter,
around.
ever vigilant,
And how are you
ever
feeling
hopeful.
about everything?
Autumn leaves
She
turned the
paused,
valley's trees
scared,
to embers
excited,
of red and gold.
suddenly aware that my apartment
Dustin's
has sharp
Creek
corners
prepared
and
for
no
the Harvest
childproofing.
Festival, a
She
celebration
laughed,
born
then
from
sobered,
shared sacrifice
but mostly
and
grateful
flourishing
that I
hope.
have you to talk to
Long
about all of
tables
this.
lined the square,
Your journey
laden
gave me
with
the courage
cider,
to start
crusty
my own.
pies, and
Her
platters
words
of
touched me
roasted
deeply.
vegetables. Maureen
We'll
and
figure it out
Whitaker,
together,
hand
whatever
in hand,
happens.
presided over the
Speaking
feast.
of which,
Victorine,
any symptoms
now
yet?
toddling
She asked
confidently,
cautiously.
chased laughter
Nothing
like
definitive,
fireflies between
I
tables.
admitted.
Neighbors
Some
toasted
fatigue,
their
a
resilience,
little nausea this
recounting
morning, but
tales
that could
of
be
the
nerves.
farm.
The blood test
Fire,
is in
the
4
outlaw
days.
raids, the narrow
I'll be
courtroom
thinking of you,
victory, and the
she
forging
promised.
of a rail line
And
that
Megan?
respected their land.
Thank you for supporting
Each
me through
story
this.
sparked applause.
After we
Each
hung up,
memory woven
I found
into their
myself
shared
reflecting on
tapestry
how much
dot
had
as the
changed
sun
since my
sank.
birthday just a month
Lanterns
ago.
glowed amber.
The day I'd
Music rose
thought
of
was the
fiddles'
end of my
plaintive
marriage had
cry,
instead become a
answering the
new
banjo's
beginning.
rhythmic pulse.
Not just for Daniel and
Couples
me, but
danced
for
on the
Olivia too.
cobblestones,
And in
children,
an unexpected way.
spun like
For
wind-blown
Chloe,
leaves.
as she rebuilt her
Reverend
life.
Holly mounted a barrel for
That
silence.
afternoon, I received
He
another
raised his
text
cup
from
in
Chloe.
blessing. To Dustin's
Jason's
Creek, may
being
our roots run deep.
discharged tomorrow.
Our spirits stand
His parents
tall,
are taking
and
him
our
back
hearts
to Arizona
remain
for
forever
recovery.
joined.
Would
A
you want to
chorus
meet for
echoed.
coffee before
To
I head back
Dustin's
to work
Creek.
next week?
Under a sky of firelit
We arranged to
clouds,
meet at a small
Maureen
cafe
lifted
near my
Victorine
office the
high.
following day.
The baby's eyes
When I
reflected
arrived,
lantern
Chloe
glow,
was already there,
bright
looking
with promise.
more
Whitaker
rested than when
squeezed
I'd last
Maureen's
seen her
shoulder.
at the hospital,
We've come far.
though still carrying tension in her
pressed
shoulders.
Her
Thank
lips
you
to
for coming,
Victorine's cheek.
she said as I joined
Further
her.
still,
I wanted
the
to see you
festival
before
swelled
everything
with
goes
song
back
and
to
gratitude.
whatever
Yet in the
normal
hush
is
between
now.
hymns, Maureen
How are you
heard
holding
the
up?
distant whistle
I
of
asked,
the locomotive,
accepting
its
the latte
distant
she'd
call,
already ordered
a
for
reminder
me.
that progress rode
Better
both
than
steam
expected.
and dreams.
She twisted
and in
a
her
napkin
heart,
between her
she
fingers.
knew their legacy would be one
Jason's
of fierce
parents have
protection
been
and open
surprisingly
arms.
kind to me,
Before
considering
the final
everything.
embers faded,
His mother
she
actually
whispered to
thanked me for
Victorine,
being there those first
"Remember
crucial
this
days.
night when a town stood
That
together
couldn't have
to
been
turn
easy for
ashes
any of
into
you.
abundance."
It wasn't.
Victorine
but it
giggled,
was
clutching
healing
her
in a
mother's
strange way.
hand, and as
Chloe
the
looked
harvest
up,
moon rose,
meeting my eyes directly.
Dustin's Creek slept under its
I got to
gentle
say
light,
goodbye
ready
properly
for whatever dawn
to the
might
relationship,
bring.
to the
Forever
future we
united by
planned,
fire,
to the
faith,
hurt and
the
anger I've
unbreakable
been
bond of
carrying.
home.
And Amber?
Winter's first snow
That's more
dusted
complicated.
Dustin's Creek with fragile lace.
We talked briefly before
quieting
she
the
was
fields and
discharged.
rooftops
She
in pristine
apologized,
white.
cried a lot.
Maureen stood outside
Chloe
her
shrugged.
home. Victorine
I don't think
snug
we'll
in
ever
her
be
arms,
friends again,
breath
but I
clouding
don't
in the
actively
cold
wish
air.
her ill anymore,
Whitaker
which is
joined her,
progress.
his boots crunching.
Definitely progress.
Over frozen
I
ground
agreed.
dot, they gazed at the
What
valley
about you?
fields beneath blankets
She
of
asked,
snow.
changing the subject.
The rail spurs steel
Any
tracks
news on the
glinting like promise
baby
under
situation?
moonlight, and the chapel
gestured
steeple
vaguely
rising above the wood
toward
line.
my midsection.
Maureen's voice was
Not
soft,
yet.
carried.
The definitive
The
test
strength
is in
of
3
seasons.
days.
We faced
I
fire,
hesitated,
outlaws,
then decided
courts,
to confide
and
in her.
kinsmen.
This
Yet
morning
here we
I thought I
stand
felt
unbroken.
different.
She
But I've
guided
been fooled
Victorine's
by
gaze
symptoms
to the
before.
tracks. One
Chloe
day,
nodded
this world
sympathetically.
will be hers.
The mind
Remind
is
her
powerful.
always what it cost to
When I
belong.
was planning the wedding,
Whitaker
I convinced
brushed a
myself
flake
I had
from
food
her.
poisoning from the
Hair,
stress.
she know.
Turned out it was just
At the
anxiety.
creek's edge, children built
Exactly.
snow forts. Their
And with
laughter
potentially
like song.
twins at stake,
Townsfolk
I'm trying
gathered
not to
red
get
scarves and hot
my
cider,
hopes too high.
ready to celebrate another
Twins?
year's survival and
Her
hope
eyes
died in the
widened.
hush of the frozen
That would be
night.
quite the plot
Maureen
twist.
and Whitaker walked
My life
hand
seems
in
to
hand,
specialize
the
in those
legacy
lately.
of Dustin's
I
Creek
laughed.
rising in their
We
footprints.
chatted for another hour,
Down the Vuttock
moving from fertility
Trail,
treatments to
the
Chloe's
locomotive's
work,
distant
my
whistle
job,
echoed a
and
lullaby
eventually
for the child's
to the
first
lake
winter,
house that had
a hymn
inadvertently
for the
brought us
valley's
into each other's
unquiet
lives.
heart.
I
And as
finally closed on
snowflakes
my own
danced beneath
place,
starlight,
she mentioned.
Maureen
Not on
pressed
the lake,
Victorine
but a
close
small
and
cabin in the
whispered,
mountains.
2 more great
Somewhere I can
stories.
go to clear my head when the
next.
city
Don't
gets
miss them.
overwhelming.
Subscribe
That
and
sounds
turn on
perfect.
notifications.
As we prepared
The
to
late
leave,
summer sun
Chloe
had
handed
burned
me
the
a
early
small
morning mist away
gift
by
bag.
the time the first
I got you
rider
something.
crested the low
A
hill
thank you
above
for being
Dustin's
there
Creek.
when you had
The little
absolutely
town
no
lay silent
obligation to
beneath him,
be.
shuttered windows
Inside was a
gleaming like
delicate
watchful
silver
eyes.
bracelet with a
No
small
wind
charm in the
stirred
shape
the
of a lotus
tumbleweeds
flower.
that littered
It's
the rutted
beautiful,
street,
I said,
and
genuinely
even the
touched.
horses in the stable
But you
seemed to
didn't
hold
need
their
to.
breath.
I wanted
In this
to,
forgotten
she
corner of the
interrupted.
territory,
The lotus
every
grows in
inhabitant
mud,
understood
yet
the
emerges
code
clean
when
and
trouble
beautiful.
came.
It reminded
rode
me of
under
how
a
something
blackened
good
sky.
can come from difficult
Inside the
circumstances.
smoke-darkened chapel on the hill,
She
its whitewashed
smiled
walls,
ruefully.
mottled with aged
Like
young
a
widows,
friendship
stood
formed
before
because I was
the
mistaken
altar,
for your
her
husband's
trembling
mistress.
hands pressed together.
I laughed at her
Sylvie
directness.
Marcellus, a
When you put it
seamstress
that
by
way.
trade, but by fate now
We
the
parted
sole
with a
keeper
hug
of a
that felt
small
natural
farm
despite
she and
our
her late
unusual
husband had
connection,
built, was 6
promising
months
to
gone
stay
with child.
in touch regardless
Yet
of where
grief
life
and
took us
fear had
next.
carved years
That evening,
into
I
her
showed
delicate
Daniel the
features.
bracelet, explaining
Her
its
eyes,
significance.
the color of storm-lashed
The lotus
steel,
metaphor is apt,
flicked to the
he
door
observed,
as heavy
examining
boots
the
pounded up
charm.
the creaking steps.
Though I'm still a bit
Marshal
amazed
Walter
that you and
Keene's
Chloe
star
have
caught
become
the
friends
sunlight
after how
as
you
he
first
stepped
met.
into the nave. His
Life
face
is strange
a mask
that
of
way,
solemn
I
authority.
mused.
Normally,
My
his
birthday
arrival
crisis led to
in
Olivia
Dustin's
deciding to
Creek would
pursue
portend measured law
motherhood,
and order,
to us finding
but the
out about
grave
the
lines around
possibility
his
of
mouth
twins, to
betrayed
a
harsher
friendship with
purpose.
someone I initially thought
Behind
was
him
having an
strode
affair
3
with my
deputies,
husband.
their rifles
Daniel pulled me
slung low,
close.
brows shadowed
Just
by
3 more
fear,
days
as
until
much
we
as
know
by
for sure
dust.
about the pregnancy.
Mrs. Marcellus,
3
the
more
Marshal
days,
began,
I
his voice
echoed,
brittle as
trying
winter
to keep
ice.
my
I've
expectations
orders
measured.
from Governor Caldwell.
But that night,
He
as I
cleared his
lay in
throat.
bed, hand
Your
resting gently on my
farm's been
abdomen,
marked for seizure.
I allowed myself to
Back
feel a
taxes,
flicker
they
of
say.
genuine hope.
Sylvie's heart
Not
pounded
just
like
for
a
a
war
positive
drum.
pregnancy test,
She
but
forced
for
her
all the
voice
new
past a
beginnings
lump
taking
of
shape
dread in her
around me.
throat.
Olivia's
I paid
journey,
every cent, sir.
Chloe's fresh
I
start,
have the ledgers
and
to
my
prove
own
it.
evolving story
The
with
Marshal's
Daniel.
jaw tightened. You'll
Whatever
hand
the
them
test
over.
revealed,
She
I
shook
knew
her
that my
head,
35th
her skirts
birthday
whispering
had
against the adobe
marked a
floor.
turning point.
I will not.
What had
My
begun in
husband's
fear and
stand-in is good.
misunderstanding had somehow
wouldn't have let you
blossomed
take
into
it.
deeper connections
Walter
and new
Keene's gaze
possibilities,
flicked to the window,
a lotus
where pale
emerging from
morning
the
light
mud,
struggled against
reaching
the gloom.
toward the light.
He spoke quietly,
light.
and Sylvie felt
The day of
chill
the embryo
of
transfer
inevitability.
arrived with a mix
I'm
of
sorry,
sunshine
Mrs.
and scattered
Marcellus.
clouds,
By law, I had
weather
no
that
choice.
matched my emotional
At that
state
moment,
perfectly.
the chapel,
Hope bright
doors
as the
burst
sunlight,
open.
caution
2
hovering
town
like the
councilmen
clouds.
and half a dozen neighbors,
Daniel and I
most
arrived at the
armed with
fertility
shotguns
clinic
and
an hour
cold iron
early,
lantern stands,
too anxious to
spilled
sit at home
inside.
waiting.
Their faces
3
etched
times
with
is the
sorrow,
charm,
rage,
Daniel said,
exhaustion were a
squeezing
mirror
my
of
hand
Sylvie's
as we
own
checked
horror.
in at the reception
You can't
desk.
do this, called Ezekiel
This was our
Booth,
3rd attempt
once
at
the town
implantation after
blacksmith.
2 previous
His voice
failures.
a low rumble.
Let's
She's
hope
a widow
so,
with child.
I replied,
Deputy
trying to keep my
Colonel
voice
raised.
steady despite the butterflies.
His rifle. Step
my
aside,
stomach.
Booth.
The
gun
waiting room
glinted
was softly
wickedly.
lit with
A
comfortable
cry rose
chairs
from
and
the back
soothing
pew,
artwork,
and Sylvie
designed
saw
to
the
calm
smallest of
anxious
the deputies,
patients like
young
us.
Parkins, lower his head.
As we settled
shame
in,
flooding
I
his
noticed a familiar
expression.
figure seated
He
across
had
the
grown
room,
up on the
head
Marcellus
bent over a
land,
magazine.
had watched Sylvie's husband,
Olivia?
Jonah,
I called
teach him to
softly.
tend horses, mend
She looked
fences,
up,
carry
surprise
firewood.
and then embarrassment
This
crossing
land
her
was home.
features.
Walter Keene closed
Megan,
his eyes,
Daniel,
whispering something
I
too
didn't
soft
expect to
for
see you
others
here
to
today.
hear.
We
The moment stretched
moved
as
to sit
taut as a
beside her.
drawn bowstring.
My transfer
Then
is
he
scheduled
opened
for
his
10,
eyes, and
I
something
explained.
raw and pained glimmered
What are you
within
doing
them.
here?
I have
Olivia
my orders,
hesitated,
he said.
glancing between us.
But I also have a duty to
I-
justice.
I
Sylvie's
decided
breath
to go
caught.
through with it.
Under that single
My initial
phrase
consultation
lay a
is
world
this
of
morning.
hope and terror dot in the sudden.
Joy burst through me.
Hush! A murmur
That's
rippled
wonderful.
through the congregation.
I didn't know you'd
an
made up
echo
your
of
mind.
something long buried.
It wasn't easy,
Townsfolk
she
exchanged
admitted.
worried glances as
After
the
our
sun
conversation
climbed
at your
higher.
birthday,
The windows
I did a
now
lot of
spilling
thinking.
golden pools
Talked to
onto
some
their
single
upturned
mothers by
faces.
choice. Did research.
Justice, they realized, was
She
not
smiled,
always
slightly.
blind. But
Then I
sometimes it
realized I was
listened.
doing all the
Sylvie
things
stepped
someone
forward,
does when
her
they've
voice
already made
steadier
their
than she
decision,
felt.
but need to feel
Justice,
justified.
Marshal, is the truth.
Daniel gave her an
And
encouraging
the truth is,
nod.
Jonah paid more
That's
than
how we
enough.
felt when we first
If
started
you
this
take
journey.
this farm, you
Researching
take my home, and
obsessively,
you
even
condemn
though
my
we'd
child
already
to the
decided.
cold.
A nurse appeared
Walter
in the doorway.
Keene looked at her, really
Megan
looked,
Warren,
as
we're
though
ready for
seeing
you.
her for the first.
My heart leapt into my throat.
The rifle in his hand
This was
weighed
it.
on him like a verdict yet
Good
to be
luck,
delivered.
Olivia said,
He
hugging me
shifted his
tightly.
boots in the dust.
I'll be
Then,
sending all the
from somewhere
positive thoughts
deep
I can
inside his
muster.
coat pocket, he
The
drew a
procedure procedure
folded
itself
scrap of
was quick
parchment,
and
the
relatively
governor's
painless,
order, with its cruelly
anticlimactic
precise
given the years of treatments,
stipulations.
tests,
He
and
cleared his
disappointments
throat
that
and
had led
began
to this
read.
moment.
Sylvie's heart
Dr.
thudded
Chen worked
until
with
it
focused
nearly drowned his
efficiency,
voice.
explaining
She
each
watched
step
as his
as the
jaw
carefully
clenched and the
selected
words tumbled from his
embryos
lips.
were transferred.
Seize the land
As we
immediate
discussed,
occupation.
she said as
No
she finished.
exceptions.
We've transferred
finality
2 high-quality
of that
embryos.
declaration landed
Based
in
on
her
your
chest
hormone
like a
levels
fist.
and the embryo quality,
townsfolk
there's
let out a
approximately a
collective gas pain,
60% chance of
unspoken
at
yet
least
understood.
one implanting
Sylvie
successfully,
felt the
and
chapel's
about a
rafters heave
30%
with their
chance that
despair.
both will.
And then,
And if both
through the
implant?
stained glass
Daniel
window on
asked,
the
holding
far
my hand
wall,
tightly.
a beam
Then
of
you'll be having
light fell upon
twins,
the floor
she
in front
replied
of
with a
Sylvia,
smile.
illuminating
We'll
a
know
single,
more in about 2 weeks when we can
crystal
perform the
hidden in
first blood
dust
test
that
for
clung to the
pregnancy
chapel
hormones.
planks.
2
The
weeks.
light caught the prism of its
infamous
polished surface,
2-week wait
scattering a
that every
rainbow
woman
across
in
the
fertility
sacred space.
treatment dreaded.
Sylvie bent
That
slowly
limbo
to pick
between
it up,
potential
her
and
fingers
certainty,
closing around the
hope
cold
and
stone.
knowledge.
Inside,
For now,
she felt
Dr.
a tremor
Chen
of
continued.
courage.
Regular
the map her husband
activity is
had
fine,
entrusted.
but avoid
Only
strenuous
to her,
exercise,
the map
hot
carved into
baths,
that very
and try to
crystal lay
minimize
in her
stress.
palm, unseen until
She gave
now.
me a knowing look.
Its glow,
I know
subtle
that
but
last part is
undeniable,
easier said than
pulsed
done.
with promise. Walter
As we
Keene
left the
hesitated,
clinic, we
his
passed
eyes
Olivia
following
still
her
waiting
gesture.
for her appointment.
The law and his
She
conscience
gave us a
waged
thumbs
their
up,
secret.
mouthing, "Call me
War
later,"
in the
as we headed
silence
for the
that followed
elevator.
Dot, and then,
In the car,
at that moment of
Daniel
suspended
turned to me
fate,
before starting the
Sylvie
engine.
met his gaze.
"How do you feel?"
I didn't ask for saving,
Physically?
she whispered.
"Fine."
I'm asking
Emotionally?
for what's mine.
Like I'm
The
balancing
Marshal's
on a
hand
tightrope.
twitched on the parchment.
I placed my
He
hand
took a breath that seemed
gently
to
on my
echo through the
abdomen,
chapel like
trying to
distant
connect
thunder.
with the
Before
microscopic
we jump
embryos
back
now
in,
hopefully
tell
finding
us
their way to
where you're
implant.
from. If
I
this
want to
story
be
moves
optimistic,
you, please
but
subscribe.
I'm scared.
Tomorrow,
Scared.
I have a
They
special
said late
story
afternoon,
for you.
I
Asterisk.
reminded Daniel for perhaps
Part
the
2.
10th time.
The days that followed
That could mean
were a
any
blur
time
of
between
charred
now and
timber,
6.
bruised knuckles, and
Why
raw
don't we sit on the
resolve.
dock? He
Maureen's
suggested.
farmstead,
It's your
once the
favorite
lifeline
spot.
of her marriage and the promise
The
for
wooden
her
dock
child,
extended 30
now
feet
stood
into
as
the
a
lake,
blackened skeleton
ending with
against
a
the
small
relentless
seating
sun.
area where we'd spent
Neighbors
countless
came
hours
and went.
watching
Some offered
sunsets,
hollow condolences.
discussing our dreams,
Others dropped off
processing
canned goods and
disappointments.
blankets before
Today, it felt
disappearing
like the
back into
perfect
their own
place to
safe
receive
little
news that
worlds.
would shape our
None
future.
stayed.
We sat
None
side by
wanted to be
side,
caught in the
feet
storm
dangling
that
above
brewed
the
around a
water,
widow
hands
who
intertwined between
refused to
us.
bow.
My phone
Inside
rested
what
on
was
my
left
lap,
of her home,
screen up,
Maureen set
volume
up
at
camp.
maximum so
She
we wouldn't
dragged her
miss
iron
the
cook stove
call.
out of the rubble and propped
Whatever
it under
happens,
the surviving lean-to.
Daniel said quietly.
The nights grew colder
We'll
now.
face it together.
The
I
embers she
squeezed his
stoked
hand
at
in
dusk were all
acknowledgement,
that kept her
too
warm
emotional to
and
speak.
kept the memories from smothering
At
her alive.
4:43 p.m.,
She did
my
not
phone rang.
weep.
Dr. Chen's
She did
name
not
lighting
beg.
up the screen.
Instead,
My
each
heart
morning
lurched
she
as
rose
I
before
answered,
dawn,
putting it on
brushing
speaker so
soot from
Daniel
her
could
hair
hear.
and humming
Hello?
lullabies to the
Megan,
child she
it's
carried under
Dr.
her
Chen.
ribs. News of her
I have
defiance spread like prairie
your
fire.
test results.
Men
I
who'd
tightened
laughed
my
when
grip
the
on
thugs
Daniel's
rode in to
hand.
teach the widow
We're
a
both
lesson,
here
now
listening.
watched her with an
There was a brief
uneasy
pause.
respect.
Surely
They
no more than a
whispered that the
second,
gunslinger
but it felt like an
Callahan was still
eternity.
out there, hunting the men who'd
Congratulations,
torched the barn,
Dr. Chen
the
said
field,
warmly.
the cradle.
You're pregnant.
She'd built with her
The
own
words
hands.
hung in the air between
They
us,
wondered if he'd come
almost
back
too
for her.
enormous to
Some hoped he
comprehend.
would.
Daniel's
Others
hand
feared what his
trembled in
return
mine,
might mean.
or perhaps
One
mine in
evening,
his.
as a low wind
Really?
rattled the remaining
I finally
shingles
managed,
overhead,
my voice
Maureen
barely a
sat
whisper.
carving initials into a
Really?
scrap
She
of
confirmed.
unburned beam, her
Your
husband's
HCG
hers,
levels
and the
are quite
child's
high,
yet
which
to
is very
come.
promising.
She paused
Based on
when
the
she heard
numbers,
the crunch of
there's a strong
footsteps on the
possibility
path.
that both
Her
embryos have
hand
implanted
slipped to the
successfully.
double-barrel shotgun, resting by her
Twins?
ankle.
Daniel's
Easy
voice
misses,
cracked on the
a
word.
voice drawled.
It's too early to
A
confirm
figure
through
stepped into the
ultrasound,
flickering
but the
firelight
hormone
thin,
levels certainly
wiry,
suggest that
smelling
possibility.
of tobacco.
We'll know more
and
in a few
regret.
weeks.
Name's
The conversation
Whitaker.
continued.
Used to ride with your
Instructions
husband.
for medications,
Got wind you might
scheduling
need a
the first
hand.
ultrasound,
Maureen's eyes
cautionary
narrowed.
advice about the
She
fragility
took
of
in
early
his threadbare
pregnancy.
coat, the patched boots,
But I was only
the
half
revolver
listening,
that swung
stunned
low
by the
on his
reality
hip.
that after
And
years
why
of
would I
trying,
trust a drifter
of
with a dead
disappointment,
man's
of
stories?
procedures and
Whitaker
injections
sank
and
to his
tears,
haunches, the
we were
flames
finally
dancing in his
pregnant.
bloodshot eyes.
When the call
'Cause
ended, Daniel
men
and I
that
sat
burned
in
you out ain't
silence for
done,
several
missus.
moments,
They're
letting
just
the
waiting,
news settle around
waiting
us
for
like
you
the
to
golden
run or
afternoon light
break.
on the lake.
He spat into the
We
dirt.
did it,
I
he
reckon
said
you'd
finally,
rather stand.
his voice thick with
She
emotion.
looked past him to
We
the
did
road
it,
that vanished
I
into
repeated,
the midnight dark.
tears spilling
Somewhere
freely
out
now.
there, her enemies
We're
drank
having
to
a
her
baby.
ruin.
Maybe
Somewhere
two.
out there,
Daniel
Callahan's
pulled
shadow
me
moved
into
between the pines.
his arms,
A
and we
promise
clung
wrapped
to
in
each
a
other on the
legend.
dock,
Reckon
laughing
you're
and
right.
crying
Maureen
simultaneously.
said,
overwhelmed
voice
by
soft
joy
but
and
steel
fear and
cold.
relief,
She
and a
leveled her
thousand other
gaze at
emotions
Whitaker.
impossible to
But
name.
you ride for me now.
I can't believe
you
it,
don't ride at
I
all.
kept saying.
He
After
grinned,
everything,
a gap-toothed
after all this
smile
time,
that hinted at old sins and
after your
older
birthday
debts.
disaster,
Then let's get
Daniel
to work.
added with a small laugh.
And So
That
it
wasn't a
was that the
disaster,
burned-out
I
widow
corrected
and the
him,
drifter
wiping
began to
tears
stitch
from
a
my
defense
cheeks.
from the ashes.
It was a
They
revelation.
laid traps in the gullies,
If I
sharpened fence
hadn't
posts
found your
into
ring,
spears,
read that
and set
email,
lanterns
come up
where
here
they'd
looking
blind
for
a
you,
man riding in blind.
you might never have found the
Every
birthday
night,
gift or my notes about the
Whitaker taught her
fertility
how to steady
treatment,
her
he
aim,
finished.
how to listen
We
for
might have missed
footsteps
that
that
perfect
lied.
moment of alignment
And
where
every
everything
night
came
Maureen
together. I
slept
nodded,
with one
resting my
hand
head
on
on
her
his
belly,
shoulder as we looked
the other wrapped around
out
the
over
cold
the
stock
tranquil
of her
lake.
father's rifle.
It's strange to
Word
think that
drifted
one of
through
the
the
worst
saloons
days
and
of my
church
life
pews
turned
alike.
into one of the
The
best.
widow would not leave.
Life's funny
And
that
if
way,
Callahan was
Daniel
coming,
mused.
God help the
The
men
things
who
we
dared
fear
to stand
most
in his way.
sometimes lead us exactly
By the
where
time
we
dawn
need to
split the
go.
horizon in ribbons
As
of
the
rust
sun
and
began
gold,
its descent toward
Maureen
the
was more than
horizon,
just a name
casting
whispered on the
long golden
wind.
reflections
She
across
was a
the
line
water,
drawn in
we
blood
sat
and
wrapped in
fire,
each other's
and
arms,
the storm
contemplating the
she'd
journey
summoned
that
would
had
be
brought
one no
us to this
soul in
moment,
those hills would
and the
ever
one
forget.
still unfolding before
Part
us.
3. By the third morning,
Impulsively,
the farm
I
looked
pulled
like
out my
the
phone
aftermath
again.
of a savage hunt.
Who are you calling?
Maureen
Daniel
Marcella
asked.
stood at the crest of
Not
the ridge,
calling.
her figure etched in
Texting.
silhouette against the
I
rising
showed him the
sun.
screen where I'd opened a
Below,
group message to
blackened
Olivia and
timbers
Chloe.
uprooted fence posts
Positive
lay in
test.
brutal angles.
Possibly twins.
Yet at her feet,
More
wildflowers
details soon,
stubbornly
but wanted
pushed
to
through
share the news
ash.
with the two
Their
people
petals
whose
like
lives got
defiant
tangled up
cries.
in our story
Whitaker
in the
rode up the
strangest
lane,
ways.
his horse's
Thank you
hooves
both for being
cloaked in
part of this
dust.
journey.
He dismounted,
Responses came
running
almost
a calloused
immediately.
hand through his tangled hair.
Olivia.
There was something,
Screaming.
both haunted and awed
I
in his
knew.
eyes as he approached
It?
her.
Calling you
We've
in
got
5
word.
minutes when I stop crying
2
happy
riders
tears.
headed this way, Clayton Briggs and the Nolan brothers.
Chloe.
They reckon it's personal
Congratulations. The
now. Maureen's
universe
lips
works in
curved
mysterious
in a thin
ways.
smile.
So happy
Let them
for you
come.
both.
We'll be ready.
They were both
Inside
there at
the
crucial
makeshift
moments.
cabin they'd
I
erected
explained
from
to Daniel.
salvaged boards.
Olivia,
The
when I
plan
thought
took
I'd lost
shape.
you. Chloe,
Whitaker
when we found
spread
our
a
way back
tattered
to each other.
canvas map on a rickety
And now they'll be part of what
table.
comes next.
He pointed
he
to
said,
3 choke points
understanding
where the ridge
completely
fell toward the
what
creek.
comes next.
We hole up here,
The phrase
and
seemed
if
to
they split
expand
up
with
right here.
possibility.
Her
Nursery
finger traced the
preparations,
lines.
doctor
Each
appointments,
spot offered
shopping
an
for
advantage.
2 of
High
everything
ground,
if the
cover
twin
of thicket,
possibility proved
a
true.
narrow ford where no horse
There would
could
be challenges
charge.
ahead,
She
certainly.
looked at him, measuring.
Pregnancy was just the beginning
Your
of an
horse? He
entirely
blinked.
new
I
journey.
took the gray Mari from my last
But
escapade.
sitting there on the dock
She's
with
fast.
Daniel, watching the
will
day
you
gradually
need?
give way to evening,
Her?
I felt
Maureen's
a profound
gaze turned
sense
to
of
the barn
readiness.
skeleton.
The path
The
that
old
had led
repair
us
horse
here,
still lingered,
winding and
ribs
unexpected
showing
as it
beneath a
had
dull
been,
coat.
had somehow
She's
prepared
yours.
us for whatever
if
lay
you need
ahead.
a ride away, I'll
My
fight
phone buzzed
here.
again with a text
He
from
frowned.
Olivia.
I won't leave
Can't
you.
wait to be
She
there
slid
for
the
all
map
of it.
across the planks.
Auntie Liv has a nice
Then
ring
fight
to
like
it,
you
don't.
mean it. They spent the
think?
day crafting their defenses.
I smiled, thinking of the
Sharpened stakes
parallel
rose
journeys
like
we were now
silent
embarking
sentinels.
on. Olivia
Along the
pursuing
ford,
single motherhood by
tripwires
choice.
linked barrel traps
Daniel and
hidden
I
under
finally
leaf litter.
expecting after years
Behind
of
each,
trying.
a cache
And even
of old
Chloe
rifles.
rebuilding her
Jonas
life
and
after
Whitaker's
unexpected
gleamed
betrayal.
in the last light.
What are you
That
thinking
night,
about?
Maureen
Daniel
labored
asked,
over a makeshift
noticing
cradle,
my expression.
a simple cot of planks
About
and
how
rope.
different our lives
She
looked a
hummed
month
Jonah's
ago,
lullaby
I
as she
replied.
sanded the edges
How
smooth.
one day, my birthday, changed
Baby
everything.
was due any moment now,
Not
but she
everything,
refused to
he
cower.
corrected gently.
If her daughter was
It
born
changed
under
our
these cruel
perspective,
skies,
showed us
she
what
would
really
face the world
matters.
with the same steel
But the
dot at
love was
dusk.
always there.
Whitaker found
The
her painting
foundation
the cradle's
solid.
legs with a mixture
We
of
just
coal
needed to
ash and
remember
oil
that.
and ancient
As
symbol
twilight
to
settled
ward
over
off
the
evil.
lake, we
He
finally
settled
rose
beside
from
her.
the dock and
You
walked
ever been
hand in
scared?
hand back to the
She
cabin,
paused, brushing
now
midair.
immersed in the
Every
blue
day.
glow of early evening.
Fear's a companion,
Inside,
but I don't
Daniel
let it sit
built
at
up
the
the
table.
fire while I called my
He pressed
sister
her
with
hand.
the news.
If
Her
they
excited
kill us,
squeals so
then they'll
loud
know
that
they
Daniel
died
could
trying
hear
to
them
take a
from
mother's
across the
courage.
room.
The wind
Later,
picked up,
curled together
carrying
on the
distant
sofa
hoofbeats
watching the
that
flames
rolled like
dance,
thunder.
I placed a
Across
protective
the
hand
hills,
over my
Maureen
still flat
rose,
abdomen,
slinging her
marveling
shotgun
at the
over her
miracle
shoulder.
happening beneath
They're
my
close.
palm. One
Time to
embryo
wake
or
our
two,
hounds.
it didn't matter.
Outside,
What
in the
mattered was
fiery
that after
flush of
years of
dawn,
hoping,
the first
we were
silhouettes
finally on our
appeared
way
at
to
the
becoming
ridge's
the
far
family
edge.
we'd dreamed of.
2 riders,
Happy on
dust-choked
birthday,
and grim,
Daniel murmured,
spurred
placing his
toward
hand
them.
over mine.
Clayton Briggs,
What?
his face a mask of
Well,
cold
your
indulgence,
actual birthday
blasted a
was kind of a
swaggering laugh.
disaster until the end.
Behind him.
he explained
The
with a
Nolan
smile.
brothers leaned low in
So
their
consider
saddles.
this your unbirthday
Maureen stood
celebration.
tall.
The day we
shotgun
found out we're
steel
going to be
reflecting
parents.
The sunrise.
I like
Whitaker
that,
took the foal's
I decided,
reins, stepping
nestling
back
closer
to
to
watch her
him.
lead.
A new
The valley
tradition to
held
mark
its
a new
breath
beginning.
as the riders plunged
Outside,
down.
night
The
had fully
slope.
claimed the
Then
lake,
as the gang swept
stars
into the
reflecting
trap's kill zone,
in its dark
sparks
surface
flew
like
and
scattered
thunder cracked.
diamonds.
Barrel traps
Inside,
exploded in a
wrapped in
cloud of
Daniel's
debris.
arms with the fire warming our
Tripwires yanked at
faces,
horses' legs,
I felt a profound
bringing
sense of
riders down in a
homecoming,
tangle of wood and
not
steel.
just to this place we
A shot
loved,
rang out
but to the
sharp and
future we'd
sure,
been working
and a
toward
Nolan
all
brother
along.
pitched forward.
The journey
Another gale
had
of
been nothing
shotgun
like I'd
blasts
expected.
shattered the morning calm.
There had been
Clayton
detours and
Briggs wheeled his
misunderstandings,
horse, rage
moments of
igniting his
despair and
eyes.
unexpected allies.
She's a witch, a devil
But
spawn.
sitting here now,
Maureen's
I wouldn't have
voice
changed
cut
a
through the
single
smoke.
step of the
She's
path
my
that had led
child,
us here.
and
Not
you'll
even
pay
the
for
moment
every
on my
spark you
35th
strike against
birthday
her
when I'd
world.
found
Briggs
Daniel's
reined
wedding
in
ring
for
on
a
the
fast
bathroom
draw,
sink
but
and
Whitaker's
feared the
rifle
worst.
barked once, catching
Because
Clayton's.
sometimes I now
Horse in the
understood.
flank.
What seems
The
like an
beast bolted,
ending is
hurling
actually
its
just
rider
the
into the
beginning of a
dust.
different, better
Whitaker
story than the
galloped
one you
forward,
thought you were
gun
living.
leveled.
And our
You
new
with me,
story
Maureen?
was just
She
beginning
nodded,
to
barrels
unfold. Was
raised.
just beginning to unfold.
For my
The
daughter's
morning of my
dawn.
pregnancy test
And as
dawned
the sun
crisp and
finally
clear.
broke free of the
I
horizon,
woke before the alarm,
clash rang
my
out
body
2
humming
against
with
3.
nervous energy
Mother's
despite having
steel
barely
and drifters
slept.
fire against vengeance's
Beside me,
fury.
Daniel stirred,
Before the
immediately alert
echo
as if he'd been
faded,
hovering just below
Maureen's laugh
consciousness.
wild and
All
unbroken
night,
rose above
today's
the
the day,
gunfire.
he
They
murmured,
thought to
reaching
burn
for
her
my
world.
hand. Today's the
Instead,
day,
they
I
ignited its
echoed,
fiercest protector,
trying to keep my
to be
voice steady.
continued. This
We had
story
an
took
8
us a
a.m.
long
appointment
time.
at the
If you
fertility
like
clinic
it,
for the blood
subscribe.
test that would determine
Now
whether
back
the embryo transfer
to
had
the
been
story.
successful.
The
Dr.
acrid
Chen had
smoke
promised
still clung to
results
the
by late
morning air
afternoon,
when Maureen
which
surveyed the
meant
aftermath.
hours of waiting,
3 of
wondering,
Briggs's men
and
lay
trying not
groaning
to
among
obsess
shattered
over every
traps and
potential
ruined
symptom.
saddles. Only his brothers
The drive
had
to the
dared
clinic
to flee
passed
back
in
the ridge's
comfortable
tangled
silence.
path.
Both of
The
us
sun
lost in our own
climbed.
thoughts and fears.
Higher, gilding the creek
Over the
below,
past 2 years of
where
treatments,
wildflowers
we'd been
danced
through
unafraid in
this
the golden
exact
light.
scenario twice
Whitaker
before.
rode alongside her.
Both times
his
had
face
ended in
streaked with
disappointment.
dirt and blood.
Both
Exhaustion
times
in
we'd
his posture,
regrouped,
yet fire
adjusted
in
the
his
approach,
eyes.
and tried
It
again.
was sweeter than I reckoned,
But this
he
time felt
admitted,
different.
his voice rough.
Maybe it was the
Maureen's
increased
pale
hormone
cheeks
levels
flushed,
Dr.
not
Chen
with
had been so
shame,
encouraged
but
by.
with life.
Maybe
No
it was
one
the
tells
higher
a story
quality
worth
of the
hearing without
embryos.
sweat.
Or
She
maybe it was
replied.
simply
Come on,
that the
we gotta
journey
move
to
the
this
wounded.
moment had been so
They
unexpected,
buried
from
the dead
birthday
in
crisis
hastily
to
dug
renewed
graves
commitment to
beneath the
potential
oaks,
twins,
and piled the
that
wounded
it seemed
on an
fated
old
to
wagon
succeed.
frame.
The
Maureen
blood
worked
draw itself
efficiently,
took less than a
binding
minute.
cuts and offering
As the nurse
sips of
labeled my
brandy she'd
sample,
hoarded.
she smiled
Each
encouragingly.
man she dressed looked
Try
at her
to keep
differently,
busy today.
not with fear.
Staring at your
but
phone
reverence
waiting
stopped
for
by
results
afternoon.
won't make them
The
come any
ridge's
faster.
slopes were empty.
Easier said
Only
than
a
done.
scattering of spent shells and
Breakfast?
clumps of horsehair
Daniel
remained
suggested as
mute
we left the
witnesses.
clinic.
Maureen
That
loaded the
diner
rifle she'd seized
you
from
like
Clayton
is just
Briggs
around the corner.
himself. Why do you
Normally,
keep
the
that?
thought of their blueberry
Whitaker
pancakes
asked
would
out.
have been
Her gaze
tempting,
drifted to the steel
but
its
my
barrel,
stomach was
etched
in
with
knots.
flooring marks.
Actually,
remind
I
me,
think I want to
she
go to
said
the lake
softly.
house.
That
Daniel
evil
raised
wears
an
a
eyebrow.
man's face.
Really?
Night fell swiftly,
That's a 2-hour
and with it,
drive.
an uneasy
I
silence.
know, but
the
it
creek's
feels
soft
right.
murmur, and
That's where everything
the hoot
changed
of
on
an
my
owl were the
birthday,
only sounds
where
as
we found
Maureen
out about
stood
the
watch,
fertility treatment
cradling her
working.
rifle when the chill
It seems
pressed
fitting
too
to be
hard.
there when we get the
Then,
results.
Far on
He
the ridge,
smiled,
a single
understanding
lantern
without
bobbed.
needing further
Whitaker
explanation.
squinted, looking for
The
clues
lake house
or
it
more
is.
trouble.
We
Maureen
stopped
felt
at
her
home to
pulse
pack
quicken.
overnight bags,
They might be
both of us
scouting,
moving
waiting
with
for another
purpose,
strike.
grateful for
They
something
moved
concrete to
silently
do.
toward the glow.
As Daniel loaded
Beneath
the
a
car,
craggy
my phone rang.
promontory, they found one
Olivia,
of Briggs's.
how are you holding up?
Nolan brothers,
She asked without
bound to a
preamble.
sapling, beaten but
Nervous,
alive.
hopeful,
His
terrified,
eyes flicked
I
between
admitted.
them with a mixture
We
of
just did the
defiance
blood
and
test.
pleading.
And
Maureen
now, the
stepped
longest
forward,
wait of your life
rifle
begins.
leveled so his gaze could
She
not
knew
be
the process
hers.
well after
Word to
supporting
your
me through
kin,
previous
she said
attempts.
quietly.
Actually,
There will
we're heading to the
be
lake
no
house to
mercy
wait
if
for the
they
results.
force my farm to ashes
It
again.
seemed
She cocked the
symbolic
rifle.
somehow.
You'll ride
That's
back with
perfect,
a message, and
Olivia
you'll deliver
agreed.
it with your life.
Full
The
circle
man's
moment.
face paled.
She paused.
He gulped.
Want
I understand,
company?
Maureen nodded.
I could drive up later.
Tell them you saw the
Be there
storm
when you
rising.
get the call.
Whitaker cut him free.
I considered her offer, touched
man
by
fell
her
to his
willingness to
knees,
drop
trembling.
everything to support
Go,
us.
Maureen ordered.
Thanks.
Take
But
the
I think
trail
Daniel
behind
and I
the
need
creek.
this time together.
It'll lead you to
Whatever the
Clayton's return
results,
camp.
we should process
He scuttled off
them
into
privately
the night,
first.
disappearing
I understand
like a frightened
completely.
rabbit.
But I'm
When
just
he
a
was
phone
gone,
call away if you need
Maureen
me.
exhaled,
I know.
lowering her rifle.
And live?
Now we wait.
Thank you for everything.
But the waiting was not idle.
just today,
Whitaker
but throughout
gathered
this whole
wood
journey.
for the fire while Maureen
That's what
retreated
best friends are
inside
for,
the
she said simply.
lean-to with her hand
As
pressed
we
to
drove
her
north
belly.
toward the lake,
The child
I felt
within
my
stirred,
anxiety
a reminder
gradually
of what
easing.
she fought for. She closed
There was
her
something
eyes,
almost
envisioning
meditative
a
about
morning
watching
not
the
yet
cityscape
dawned,
give way
a
to
home
suburbs
rebuilt,
and then to
laughter in the
countryside,
fields,
as
a
if we
daughter's
were
tiny
physically
fingers
distancing
wrapped
ourselves
around
from the stress of waiting.
hers. Outside,
What are you thinking
the
about?
crackle of the fire
Daniel
stirred
asked,
Whitaker's
glancing over
voice.
at me.
"They'll think
How
twice,"
much has
he
changed
murmured.
since we were last
She
here?
opened her eyes
It's
and
only
met
been
his
a few
gaze.
weeks, but it
"They'll
feels like
try,
longer.
and when they do,
He
we'll be
nodded.
here." All
Your
through the
birthday
night,
seems like
she
a
lay
lifetime
awake,
ago.
listening for
A lifetime
hoofbeats,
ago, I thought.
listening for the
You were
thunder of
leaving me,
oncoming.
I mused.
Rage,
Now we might
and
be
as
having
the first
twins.
pale fingers of
Let's
dawn
not get
brushed
ahead
the
of
sky,
ourselves.
she
He
knew
cautioned
they
gently,
would not wait long.
though I could hear the
The crack of dawn had barely broken the horizon when bells rang a warning through Dustin's Creek. The town's solitary church flung open its doors, and residents poured into the streets, mud-slick boots pounding wooden boards. Their eyes were wide with dread. Some carried rifles, others scythes sharpened like guillotines, all bound by a single purpose: stand with Maureen Marcellus or watch their homes burn. From the ridge, Maureen watched the townsfolk assemble. Beside her, Whitaker adjusted his hat, eyes narrowed against the morning glare. Their makeshift fort had grown, barricades of barrel frames, stakes driven point first into the earth, and even a hastily rigged steel cable across the creek that would catch any rider foolish enough to charge. "Looks like the whole valley's rising," Whitaker muttered. She nodded, pressing a hand to her belly. "If they cross that cable, they catch hell on two sides." Below, the Nolan brother returned, staggering with fright. He spat in the dirt, wordless, then turned and fled back toward the ridge. Maureen's gaze followed him, unwavering. Out on the horizon, a cloud of dust bloomed like a wound. Riders, dozens of them, spurred southward. War paint streaked across their faces. Clayton Briggs rode at their head, vengeance in his stare. They were armed to the teeth, rifles, pistols, hatchets, mercy long ago stripped away. Maureen raised her rifle, citing "This story took us a long time. If you like it, subscribe. Now back to the story." Frontman as he reached for his smoking pistol. Whitaker's rifle barked a warning shot, clipping the ground at the lead. Riders' feet, dust exploded. Shouts rose like a dying ember. Chaos erupted. Briggs thundered his horse forward. Nolan's men fanned out like a hand, but Maureen and Whitaker held their ground. Barrage of bullets filled the air, and every time a rider fell, a cheer erupted from the defenders. Then Briggs himself thundered toward the cable. He laughed, leaning low in the saddle as his brothers suppressed their horses beyond. Whitaker leveled a shot, but the lead rider, Clayton Briggs's pistol, barked in the narrow gap before the cable, its report ricocheting off the ridge's stone walls. He spurred his horse forward, confidence blazing in his eyes. Too close, he thought, too easy, but the cable snapped taut. With a deafening crack, it snagged the horse's legs and yanked the steed 9 feet into the air. The animal pitched forward, rider and saddle both convulsing in midair before crashing into a tangle of broken wood and screaming. Briggs rolled free, blood splattering his cheek, then lunged for his pistol. His men hesitated, dread surfacing in a moment of shock. Whitaker seized the opening. From behind Maureen's barricade, his rifle spoke twice. One shot clipped the reins of the nearest man-at-arms. The second smashed the wheel of an approaching wagon. Dust and gleaming metal cascaded through the morning light. Maureen steadied, her breathing, finger brushing the trigger guard of her rifle. She pivoted and sighted the attackers cutting toward her left flank. 2 riders weaving through the trees. Her shot knocked the reins from one's hand, spinning horse and rider to the earth. The second man floundered, dropped his pistol in panic. She spared no time for satisfaction. With a swift kick to the ground, she vaulted atop the barricade, offering Whitaker cover. Below, townsfolk surged forward, angry and determined. Women loaded rifles. Blacksmith Booth hefted a hammer bigger than his arm, forging makeshift pikes. Children watched wide-eyed from doorways, knowing they'd be told about this day for the rest of their lives. The castle of corpses and spent lead inched nearer. Nolan's men reforming ranks despite the chaos. Briggs staggered to his feet, face a mask of fury. He glared at Maureen, voice raw. "You burn with a fire no kin can match." She leveled her rifle, calm as sunrise. "Then you'll drown in sparks." He charged again, rifling his pistol like a scorpion. Each round he fired spat hot death into the air, but the widow was faster. Her shot rang clear, striking Briggs's gun wrist. He howled, dropping to one knee. Blood trickled down his forearm. He aimed with trembling hand, desperation giving him uncanny focus, until Maureen's barrel swept around and caught the moonlight off the hammer. The outlaw's eyes widened. He raised his good hand in defeat. Silence slammed across the battlefield. For an instant lifetime, then from the ridge beyond, hoofbeats and laughter. Toby Nolan emerged, riding bareback, face cut by splinters and sweat. "Briggs falls, and you all pause?" he shouted. "Is this woman a witch or a demon?" Whitaker's voice cut through. "She's every mother's wrath," Nolan sneered, rallying the remaining men. They charged with a roar that shook stones, loose from the cliffside. But by now the defenders had found their rhythm. Blacksmith Booth repelled the first wave with brute force. 2 sharpshooters on the ridge's flank picked off the horsemen one by one, and Maureen's rifle sang death. To every advance, Toby Nolan refused to die so easily. He leapt into the fray, sword raised, targeting Whitaker. Maureen intercepted, her shotgun stock connecting with Nolan's skull in a bone-shattering blow. He crumpled, unconscious. At that, the remnants of Nolan's cadre balked. They looked at their fallen leaders, the smoking rifles, the unbroken barrier of townsfolk, and turned to flee. Maureen watched them go, chest heaving, heart pounding as the adrenaline ebbed. Around her, cheers rose, a hymn composed of relief, vengeance, and newfound hope. She sank to her knees, tucking the rifle beside her. Whitaker dropped beside her, hand on her shoulder, pride shining brighter than any metal. She pressed her palm over her heart. "This dawn has cost much," she whispered. He squeezed her shoulder. "But it saved everything." The valley exhaled around them, victory, hard won and resonant. The scorched earth quivered in the morning hush as if remembering the wrath of a mother willing to die to protect her child. The crackdown was over. The ridge lay empty but for the echoes of battle. Maureen stood bloodied but unbowed, dawn's golden fingers warming her face. Yet, as the cheers faded, a colder whisper reached her ears. This victory was only the opening. Cord dot in the distance, beyond the creek's sparkling ribbon, a plume of smoke rose as signal on the horizon. Someone had rallied. Or worse, someone new had joined the fray. Maureen swallowed, pressing her lips tight. Whitaker approached, eyes bleak. "Not them," he muttered. "That's on the other side of Golden Pass." Her breath caught. Golden Pass, where Callahan's old gang had held sway before Jonah drove them out. A place of ghosts and unfinished scores. "Then it's more than Briggs's revenge we face," she said, voice thin as winter ice. Below, Booth gestured toward the smoke. "Looks like we've got company, missus." Maureen raised her rifle, scanning the horizon. Figures appeared, at first just dark dots against the gray smoke, then riders 10, 20, maybe more, descending toward the town. Her pulse thundered. "Gather the townsfolk. We ride out to meet them." Whitaker's jaw went rigid. Risky Golden Pass is ambush country. She shook her head, resolve hardening in her storm-gray eyes. "If they mean to burn Dustin's Creek, I'll meet them on their own ground." Behind her, the town stirred, arms readied, hearts steeled. Maureen turned back to her people, voice carrying across the valley. "They think they've beaten us. Let's show them the strength of a mother's will." The assembled crowd answered with a roar, lifting makeshift weapons aloft. And so, as the second wave thundered down from Golden Pass, Maureen Marcellus led her ragged army of farmers and blacksmiths and drifters straight into the storm. The road to Golden Pass wound like a serpent through jagged rocks and scrub pines. Dust billowed in thick clouds as Maureen's ragtag militia followed her lead, Whitaker at her side. The early sun cast long shadows, turning the path ahead into Slashes of light and dark that danced like specters of the coming conflict. They reached the narrow mouth of Golden Pass, the walls looming overhead, cold and unwelcoming. Maureen dismounted, scanning the rocky corridor. Traps lay along the edges, burlap sacks and sharpened stakes barely hidden beneath loose earth. Evidently, this stretch of land had been prepared for slaughter long before dawn. She pressed her palm to the cool rock, feeling its pulse. They know we're coming. A low rumble came from deeper within the pass. Shadows shifted. A band of riders emerged, Callahan's men, hardened veterans scarred by countless fights. At their head rode a broad-shouldered giant cloaked in a tattered duster, Callahan himself. Time seemed to slow. The two forces eyed each other across the narrow corridor. On one side, the Widow's makeshift battalion, armed with promise and fury. On the other, battle-born killers led by the notorious Callahan. Maureen raised her rifle. "Name's Marcellus," she called out, voice echoing against stone. "You burned my home. Now you ride for your lives." Callahan's cold laugh rolled like thunder. He drew his Colt and fired a single round at the rock wall, the shot echoing into the chasm. "And who are you to stand in my way?" he challenged. Whitaker nudged Maureen. "Your call, missus." She steadied her breathing. "Just a mother," she replied, and squeezed the trigger. The bullet struck the wall dead center, kicking up dust in a cloud that framed her silhouette. That was the signal. Whitaker raised his hat, and every townsfolk behind him loosened their weapons. The clatter of rifles echoed, a chorus of defiance. Callahan's men surged forward, shotguns blazing. The pass ignited with gunfire and war cries as the two forces clashed. Maureen dove behind a boulder, shotgun roaring. The flintlock's thunder rattled the rocks. Sparks flew as metal slammed stone. Whitaker's rifle barked out precise shots, felling attackers with superhuman calm. Moments later, a bellowing roar. Callahan, wounded in the shoulder, charged at Maureen with merciless rage. She met him at the pass's narrowest point, rifle at hip, eyes blazing. He swung a crowbar. She sidestepped, kicking the weapon down the chasm. The force spun Callahan off balance. She pressed her barrel to his chest. He looked into her eyes, steel and storm. Slowly, he sank to his knees, cloak stained with blood. Behind them, the rebel militia cheered, pressing Callahan's men back toward the pass's mouth. The narrow corridor became a funnel of defeat, bodies tumbling over one another to escape. Maureen lowered her gun, pressing a hand to Callahan's cheek. "This land is mine now," she said, voice soft but unyielding. He spat. "You're just a woman." Her laugh was cold. "And you're just a man who forgot what it cost to cross one." The battle ended as abruptly as it had begun. Golden Pass lay silent, but for groans of the wounded and the rasp of breath sucked from heavy chests. Maureen stood tall, chest heaving. Around her, her people gathered, battered but triumphant. Whitaker approached, laying a bloodied hand on her shoulder. "You did it," he said quietly. She nodded. "For our future." In the pass's narrow light, the widow's resolve shone brighter than any weapon, a testament that some fires could never be snuffed. The return trek from Golden Pass to Dustin's Creek was one of cautious triumph. The valley lay serene under the midday sun, stretching fields and orchards that bore no memory of the fires. As Maureen and her band emerged from the twisting gorge, relief rippled through the townsfolk who'd waited, each face a portrait of hope reclaimed. They marched her into the town square, where windows flung open like cheering mouths. Children ran to see the woman who had faced down outlaws and storms, their eyes wide with awe. Men and women alike laid down weapons at her feet, tears mingling with dirt on their cheeks. Maureen dismounted, her frame weary but unbroken. Whitaker came beside her, placing the crippled Callahan bound and bruised on a wagon. The outlaws' eyes flicked to Maureen, flickering with something like grudging respect. Reverend Halley stepped forward, tears shining on his weathered face. He placed a hand on her shoulder. "You've walked through fire and death, Maureen Marcellus. Dustin's Creek owes you its life." She bowed her head. "We all stood together," she said softly. "I only led where there was need." The Reverend gestured to Callahan, hoisted onto his feet with 2 deputies. "And what say you, outlaw? Will you honor this town's mercy?" Callahan spat a wad of tobacco. His gaze flicked from his bleeding shoulder to the resolute faces around him. At last he bowed his head. "I'll ride away, never to return. No inked oath needed." A cheer rose hot and bright. The tension that had strung every nerve snapped, replaced by a tide of unity. That evening, as lanterns cast a soft glow across the creek's gentle waters, Dustin's Creek gathered. The blacksmith booth hammered horseshoes for new beginnings. Children sat at Maureen's feet, listening to her tell the tale of courage beneath a sky freckled with stars. Whitaker brought her a cup of strong coffee. "They'll remember this tale longer than any sermon." She sipped, warmth blossoming in her chest. "They'll carry this dawn in their hearts." Above, owls called from the pines. All was quiet. Peace had a heartbeat of its own now, but in the wind that sighed through the trees, Maureen heard a whisper yet to be spoken, the promise of a home rebuilt, of a child's first breath under gentler skies. And for that, she would stand guard until her last day. Weeks passed like drifting tumbleweeds, and Dustin's Creek rebuilt under Maureen's watchful eyes. The barn rose again, sturdy beams replacing charred ruins. Neighbors pitched in hammer and nail, brick and plaster united by shared purpose. In the soft yellow glow of lantern light, laughter returned to the fields where sorrow had stalked. Maureen felt the babies fluttering, kicks as she worked beside Whitaker at the blacksmith's forge. Each strike of the hammer rang hope into the air. Whitaker caught her glance and bowed his head respectfully. She returned a smile that held both exhaustion and triumph. One evening, a rider appeared on the ridge, an envoy from Governor Caldwell's office bearing a sealed letter. The town gathered at the saloon's porch. Under the sign reading "Silver Star," Maureen and the Marshal, his star shining bright on his coat, accepted the envoy. The governor's letter praised her courage, pardoned any debts incurred, and granted an official title to the land she reclaimed. The seal broke with a crisp crack that echoed in her chest. "Land grant Marcellus homestead." A cheer erupted, and Maureen's eyes glistened. She read the words twice before passing the parchment to the Marshal. He nodded solemnly. Justice truly had found her. That night the town threw a celebration. Lanterns drifted like stars above long tables laden with fresh bread, roasted meat, and sweet pies. Music swelled fiddle and banjo in joyous harmony while lantern light flickered across faces that glowed with new beginnings. Maureen joined the dance, her gown swishing in the dust. Whitaker spun her with surprising gentleness, both of them laughing beneath the open sky. She pressed her hand to her belly, feeling the life within stir to the rhythm of celebration. Later, she stood at the edge of the creek, the water's soft murmur reflecting the lantern glow. Whitaker approached quietly, offering her a simple wooden box. Inside lay Jonah's pocket watch, its silver face polished to a mirror sheen. "I found it in the barn ruins," Whitaker said softly. "He'd want you to have it." Tears welled as she clasped the watch. "Thank you." He placed a hand over hers. "For the child." She nodded. "We'll keep time by it, second by second, heartbeat by heartbeat." The creek's song carried them home, 2 survivors bound by mercy and defiance, toward the dawn of a life neither had dared to dream. The first chill of autumn drifted through Dustin's Creek, and with it came the promise of harvest. Maureen stood among the stalks of golden wheat, the wind whispering through the field like a chorus of gratitude. Neighbors labored around her, stacks of grain bound and drying for the coming winter. Her belly had grown full, rounding her silhouette like the moon over the creek. Whitaker joined her, leading the gray mare and 2 plow horses that had been gifted for her homestead. "You ever think we'd see this peace?" he asked, voice soft against rustling wheat. She paused, hand on her side. "Some days I still wake half expecting the smoke." He shook his head, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "But it never comes." She smiled, leaning into his warmth. "Because we stand guard together." That evening, a rider arrived bearing a telegram news from town council. The county had approved repairs for the weary chapel on the hill, and a midwife was heading west to deliver her first child safely. The town gathered once more beneath lantern glow, cheering as Maureen read the bulletins aloud. Laughter wove through the night air, a tapestry of renewed faith. Later, as candles burned low, she sank into the rocking chair Jonah had carved years ago. Whitaker settled at her feet, polishing the pocket watch by its silver chain. "She's due soon," he murmured. She nodded, eyes distant. "Any moment now." A hush fell as a distant cry rent the evening air, horse hooves approaching fast. "Maureen." And Whitaker exchanged tense glances before he rose, rifle in hand, heading toward the porch. Moments later, he returned, face pale in the lantern light. "Deliverance," he whispered. Behind him, the midwife stood clutching a blanket-wrapped bundle. Candles flickered as she lifted the cloth to reveal a newborn's pink face, smaller than the stars that shone above. Maureen's breath caught. Whitaker knelt beside her, and she reached out, touching the tiny hand that curled around her finger. "All of this," she whispered to the child, "was for you." In the hush of that sacred moment, the valley exhaled once more. Victory had come full circle, from ashes to wheat, from fire to lullaby, and in the cradle's soft glow, Maureen found the promise of a tomorrow sown in love's steadfast courage. The day after her daughter's birth, Maureen led a quiet ceremony at the rebuilt chapel on the hill. Neighbors gathered beneath whitewashed walls, bathed in morning light. Reverend Halle offered a blessing for the newborn, Victorine Marcellus her name carried on soft hymns and tearful prayers. Afterwards, Maureen cradled Victorine on the porch as the wind played through the pines. Whitaker placed the pocket watch in her hand. "Her first keepsake," he said. She nodded, brushing Victorine's cheek. "Time's gift." Days grew crisp, winter's breath at the valley's edges. Dustin's Creek settled into its newfound calm, fields cleared for snow, horses stabled. Warmly, one twilight, Maureen stood at the barn's threshold, Victorine swaddled in her arms, watching Whitaker repair fence rails. The gray mare neighed softly, her breath drifting in misty puffs. "Tomorrow," Whitaker said, looking up, "I ride to visit old friends, checking in on the pass. You'll be all right?" She paused, heart tightening. "With Victorine, always." He bent to kiss her forehead. "Then I'll return quickly." At dawn, he rode out, Victorine cooing in her cradle as Maureen watched from the porch, resolute and serene. Days passed without word. Maureen's vigil wavered only once, when she glimpsed figures atop the ridge, silhouettes against the pale sky. She gripped the rifle Jonah had crafted and prepared. Then, a single rider thundered down, the gray moire carrying Whitaker. Head hung low, reins loose, Maureen rushed to him, heart pounding. He slid from the saddle, voice soft. "They've come back." Her blood ran cold. "From Golden Pass?" He shook his head. "Worse. Governor Caldwell's orders, an inspection. They want to see if this town can survive without threat, and if not, they take the land for railroads." Silence wrapped around her like a noose. Dustin's Creek, her home, faced new tyranny. Maureen held Victorine close, eyes steeled. "Then, we stand again for every heartbeat here." And in that moment, beneath the barn's budding promise of spring, she knew her vigil was eternal, as a mother, a Marshal's ally, and the sentinel of a town that refused to fade. The inspector's carriage rattled up Main Street, its polished wheels an omen of distant power. Dustin's Creek gathered as one beneath frosted eaves, men in coats braced tight, women clutching shawls, and Victorine wrapped snug in Maureen's arms. The carriage door opened with regal finality, and out stepped Colonel Abram Kells, heir of Governor Caldwell's will. He swept his gaze along the town's patched roofs and new fences, face unreadable. His aide, clipboard in hand, took notes. On every cracked board and blooming flower. Maureen approached, chin high, baby on hip. "Colonel," she said, voice calm steel, "welcome to Dustin's Creek." He inclined his head. "Mrs. Marcellus, I've heard much your defense, your birth." He gestured to Victorine. "Impressive." She steadied herself. "We defend what we build, sir." He smiled thinly. "That's exactly why I'm here. The railhead will pass through these hills. We require free passage or compensation." Murmurs rippled through the crowdland sale or forced removal. Whitaker stepped forward. "This land's granted to Maureen Marcellus. Are you disputing the governor's own decree?" Kells's eyes narrowed. He tapped the clipboard. "Declarations change. The rail's interest supersedes local claims. It's in the country's best interest." Maureen's grip tightened on Victorine. "The country you speak for is my daughter's." "Home," Kells's aide whispered. The colonel nodded. "Then a compromise. Move the route 2 miles south. We build a spur to your town's main thoroughfare." Silence. 2 miles south meant a tunnel through unforgiving rock and years of delay. Dustin's Creek would starve or be held hostage. Maureen exhaled slowly. "Or," she said softly, "we stand by our land." Kells's smile turned cold. "Then we bulldoze a path." The threat hung like storm clouds. Townsfolk shared glances, resolve hardening in every eye. Maureen held Victorine close, voice clear. "If you break this land, you break our spirit." Kells surveyed the crowd. He tapped his boots on the dusty street. "I leave with your answer at dusk." He returned to his carriage, wheels rolling like judge's gavel dot as the carriage vanished. Dustin's Creek exhaled, then turned to Maureen. She placed Victorine in Whitaker's arms. "They test our will. We answer with ours." Whitaker nodded, eyes dark with determination. Through the gathering dusk, the town prepared for a new stand. Not against outlaws or gangs, but against empire itself. The real fight for their home had only begun. Under a paling sky, Dustin's Creek gathered at the edge of the field where the proposed rail line was marked with red stakes. Men with measuring chains, engineers in starched collars, paced the land, eyes cold with calculation. Women watched. From doorways, children tailed their skirts. Adrian Caldwell's lieutenant, Colonel Kells's second-in-command, supervised the work. Maureen stood at Whitaker's side, Victorine asleep against her shoulder. She surveyed the land, rolling fields that yielded grain, orchards heavy with fruit, the chapel on the hill that had seen both tears and laughter. The lieutenant approached, clipboard in hand. "Ma'am, the engineers need clear right-of-way. Best if you move your livestock and structures beyond those stakes." She squared her shoulders. "Those stakes mark my home, sir." The lieutenant frowned. "Orders are orders. The rail must proceed by sunrise." Maureen met his gaze. "Then, I won't stand aside." He cleared his throat. "I'll report back." He spoke into his pocket watch, voice low dot as he retreated. Townsfolk fused into action. Fences removed by hand, barns unlatched for relocation, horses led to alternate pastures. Each citizen contributed muscle and resolve. Whitaker rallied. Them, barking orders like a veteran sergeant, but no structure could move the earth itself. The red stakes dug into fields, severing root and soil. That night by lantern light, Maureen and Whitaker addressed the town assembled in the chapel. She laid her hand over the map spread on the altar's plinth. "They'll chop through our harvest, our history. We must stop them by rail or by law." Booth, the blacksmith, slammed his fist into his palm. "I say we dismantle their rails by dawn." Others nodded. fists raised in fierce solidarity. Yet, in the hush that followed, Maureen raised her hand for silence. A revolt against our government risks more than the rail. We'll have soldiers, not surveyors, at our doors. A murmur of fear washed through the pews. Maureen's gaze roamed over the faces she'd saved. Instead, she continued, we fight with word and witness. We petition the governor, unite neighboring towns. We show them a community too fierce to vanish. Her resolve ignited their hope. Whitaker stepped forward, raising Victorine in a protective cradle. For her future. They chanted, for her future. And in that hallowed hall, they vowed to defend their hearth, not with gunpowder, but with unity pressing against the iron teeth of progress. Winter's breath settled over Dustin's Creek in crystalline frost, the rail stakes standing like tombstones across the fields. Maureen adjusted Victorine in her arms and led a delegation to the post road, where a rickety stage awaited town. Representatives, farmers, shopkeepers, even the blacksmith booth stood beside her. Whitaker unfolded her petition, hundreds of signatures demanding rerouting the railroad, compensation for seized land, and recognition of the community's sovereignty. They presented it to the county seat's magistrate, whose expression flickered between disdain and mild surprise. Your petition's noted, the magistrate intoned, tapping his fish-skin quill. But the railroad's interest is paramount. Directives come from the governor himself. Maureen stepped forward, voice ringing. Clear. Governor Caldwell spared no mercy when law suited his cause, but saved no prayers for a widow defending her child. A hush fell. The magistrate's quill trembled. I will forward your petition. You have our consideration. They left. Without ceremony, hearts heavy yet unbroken. Snow blanketed the stakes overnight, muting their menace but not their intent. Inside the Silver Star Saloon, Maureen warmed her hands by the fire, Whitaker beside her, Victorine asleep. Consideration. Means time, he said softly. She nodded. Time we don't have. A knock sounded at the door. Deputy McAllister returned from the city, stepped in. His eyes, once weary, burned bright. The governor's response arrived, he announced, handing Maureen a dispatch. He's delayed construction for 60 days and ordered an inquiry. Your community has the right to testify. A cheer erupted, lanterns flickering in joyous haste. Maureen unfolded the parchment, studying its words. Whitaker breathed beside her. We buy time. She pressed her palm against the paper. Time to save our home. Outside, snow continued to fall, a promise of renewal. And in the warmth of the saloon, a fractured town stitched itself whole. With hope and perseverance, preparing to face the halls of power with the same unwavering spirit that had defended fields and barns. The inquiry convened at the county courthouse, its grand columns looming over a tired town. Inside, Dustin's Creek's delegation, Maureen, Reverend Hawley, Deputy McAllister, and Whitaker, took witness seats. Opposite them sat the railroad's legal counsel, slick in black coats, their ledger books stacked like sentinels. Judge Pembroke rapped his gavel. This hearing shall determine whether the rail may proceed through Dustin's Creek. Counsel, you may present your case. The railroad lawyer rose, voice smooth as oil. Your Honor, the nation demands progress. Our engineers present surveys showing minimal disruption, 60 stakes to be removed, new fences erected at our expense. This is fair compensation. Reverend Holly leaned forward. What of the Marcellus homestead, the birthplace of a child whose future you threaten? The lawyer dismissed him with a polite bow. They may rebuild. We offer financial support. Maureen's pulse thrummed like war drums as she stood. The room fell silent. She laid a single soot-smudged ledger on the clerk's desk, the Marcellus farm records, dated and paid in full. Your Honor, this land was won from ashes by my husband and me. These fields feed countless families. To fragment, it is to sever. Our lifeblood. She paused, voice softening as she pulled Victorine from Whitaker's arms and cradled her before the bench. This child was born under those fields' promise. Will you uproot her cradle for profit's rails? A hush swept the gallery, heartfelt as prayer. Deputy McAllister added, "We ask not to halt progress, but to protect a community's soul. Let the rail bypass our valley by 2 miles, preserving homes and history." The judge leaned back, steepling. His fingers, compelling, counsel for the railroad. Their lawyers shuffled papers, uneasy now. Judge Pembroke tapped his gavel. "This court finds in favor of Dustin's Creek. The railroad shall reroute the main line 2 miles south, with the company providing a spur and station house as proposed. Counsel, issue your orders." Gasps of relief filled the courtroom like spring thunder. Maureen sank into her chair, tears of triumph shining in her eyes. Whitaker squeezed her hand. Prayer answered in paper decree. Outside, the sun broke through steel-gray clouds, scattering diamonds across melting snow. Dustin's Creek breathed free at last, victory etched in hearts and on the legal scroll, a testament that resolve and compassion could bend even iron tracks. Spring arrived in a flourish of green, and Dustin's Creek blossomed under renewal. The railroad surveyors, led by a derisive foreman, eyed the southern route warily. But the valley's farmers, once wary and hardened, now banded together to guide the engineers. Maureen marched alongside Whitaker and Reverend Halley, showing them the gaps in the land where the spur would rise. They marked curves around orchards and bends through gentle meadows so the tracks would honor, rather than sever, the fields. Whitney, the blacksmith's apprentice, hammered spikes at the demonstration, a gesture of cooperation, not capitulation. In the evenings, DP, followed by families who'd lost barns and fields in past storms, now shared meals at the saloons. Long tables, laughter wove through the chords of a fiddle. Children chased lanterns along the creek's banks, their joy bright as fireflies. One night, as fireflies danced in the twilight, Whitaker found Maureen rocking Victorine on the porch. She hummed a lullaby Jonah had sung. He stood quietly until she looked up. "They start laying ties tomorrow," he said. She nodded, looking toward the ridge for her first footsteps. He kissed her forehead. "We built this town twice, once with gun smoke, once with hope," she smiled. "Born from fire and flourished with faith." Behind them, the whistle of a distant locomotive heralded the first test run on the spur, proof that progress and compassion could ride the rails together. And as steel wheels sang against iron tracks, Dustin's Creek found its place in the world's song, a harmony shaped by a widow's courage, a town's unity, and a mother's unwavering love. Summer's heat rippled across fields of wheat, now golden and full. As the new rail spur wound like a silver serpent through Dustin's Creek, locomotives hissed promises of commerce, and townspeople lined the platform for the inaugural run. Cheering as the engine's bell tolled. At the front, Maureen held Victorine high, waving a daughter's first bonnet. Whitaker stood beside her, pride shining in his eyes. The train chugged forward, clearing gaps between carriages where benches bore the names of families who defended the land. A wreath of wildflowers adorned the engine's grill, a living tribute to resilience. After the cheers, life returned to its steady hum. Markets thrived. New settlers arrived, enticed by fertile soil and welcoming arms. The blacksmith's forge rang with fresh orders, and the chapel's bells pealed Sunday mornings. One evening, Maureen walked the ridgeline where the world's edge met the sky. Victorine toddled beside her, laughter sparkling in the dusk. Whitaker followed at a respectful distance, rifle unused, spirit at rest. She knelt, lifting her daughter to place a small wildflower in her hair. "Remember this," she whispered, voice so soft it mingled with the wind. "This land stands because we stood for it." Victorine babbled in delight, the future's promise unfurling in her bright eyes. In Dustin's Creek, Scars remained bullet holes, patched in the saloons. Walls, graves beneath the oaks, and the faint scent of smoke on old timbers. Yet, from those ashes rose a community tempered by trials. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in ribbons of rose and gold, Maureen rose, wrapping Victorine in her arms. She faced the town below, fields waving in the wind, lanterns flickering awake, and the rail spur glinting. Together, they watched the twilight settle, a testament that true victory comes not by destroying, but by building homes, hearts, and a legacy to carry forward. Dustin's Creek slept beneath a blanket of stars, safe in the hands of the widow and her daughter, ever vigilant, ever hopeful. Autumn leaves turned the valley's trees to embers of red and gold. Dustin's Creek prepared for the Harvest Festival, a celebration born from shared sacrifice and flourishing hope. Long tables lined the square, laden with cider, crusty pies, and platters of roasted vegetables. Maureen and Whitaker, hand in hand, presided over the feast. Victorine, now toddling confidently, chased laughter like fireflies between tables. Neighbors toasted their resilience, recounting tales of the farm. Fire, the outlaw raids, the narrow courtroom victory, and the forging of a rail line that respected their land. Each story sparked applause, each memory woven into their shared tapestry. As the sun sank, lanterns glowed amber. Music rose, a fiddle's plaintive cry, answering the banjo's rhythmic pulse. Couples danced on the cobblestones, and children spun like wind-blown leaves. Reverend Holly mounted a barrel for silence. He raised his cup in blessing. To Dustin's Creek, may our roots run deep, our spirits stand tall, and our hearts remain forever joined. A chorus echoed, to Dustin's Creek. Under a sky of fire-lit clouds, Maureen lifted Victorine high. The baby's eyes reflected lantern glow, bright with promise. Whitaker squeezed Maureen's shoulder. We've come far. She pressed her lips to Victorine's cheek. Further still. The festival swelled with song and gratitude. Yet in the hush between hymns, Maureen heard the distant whistle of the locomotive, its distant call, a reminder that progress rode both steam and dreams. And in her heart, she knew their legacy would be one of fierce protection and open arms. Before the final embers faded, she whispered to Victorine, remember this night when a town stood together to turn ashes into abundance. Victorine giggled, clutching her mother's hand, and as the harvest moon rose, Dustin's Creek slept under its gentle light, ready for whatever dawn might bring, forever united by fire, faith, and the unbreakable bond of home. Winter's first snow dusted Dustin's Creek with fragile lace, quieting the fields and rooftops in pristine white. Maureen stood outside her home, Victorine snug in her arms, breath clouding in the cold air. Whitaker joined her, his boots crunching. Over frozen ground. They gazed at the valley fields beneath blankets of snow, the rail spurs' steel tracks glinting like promise under moonlight, and the chapel steeple rising above the woodline. Maureen's voice was soft, yet carried the strength of seasons. We faced fire, outlaws, courts, and kingsmen. Yet here we stand unbroken. She guided Victorine's gaze to the tracks. One day, this world will be hers. Remind her always what it cost to belong. Whitaker brushed a flake from her hair. She know. At the creek's edge, children built snow forts, their laughter like song. Townsfolk gathered red scarves and hot cider, ready to celebrate another year's survival and hope. In the hush of the frozen night, Maureen and Whitaker walked hand in hand, the legacy of Dustin's Creek rising in their footprints. Down the Vuttock Trail, the locomotive's distant whistle echoed a lullaby for the child's first winter, a hymn for the valley's unquiet heart. And as snowflakes danced beneath starlight, Maureen pressed Victorine close and whispered, 2 more great stories are next, don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications.